The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guest, analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. And we're going to be with you for the next 3 hours live, talking to you about topics having to do with autism. I'm drooling here because I just took a drink of water. I'm talking about autism and how we can be more effective, more efficient, working with our children on the autism spectrum. You know, I had the occasion to talk to someone earlier this morning, and I was saying, you know, being a parent, and I am a parent of a child who was diagnosed with autism at 2.5, that a lot of what our day is spent doing is helping our kids to reach their full potential. And that it is a job that we took on when we became parents, right? Helping our kids to reach their fullest potential. We had no idea how involved it was going to be. None whatsoever. I certainly didn't. But nonetheless, we rise to the occasion, and, you know, if whatever it is, we're going to do it, right? And we are going to talk a lot today about ABA. It's pretty much what we talk about every day, but it's not the only thing we talk about. ABA is applied behavior analysis. It's the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. And by the way, it isn't just effective for our kids on the spectrum, it's effective for everyone. And by the way, it is effective for all of our kids on the spectrum. So whether you have a child who is very minimally affected or a child who's very profoundly affected, it's important to realize that if we apply these tools, if we really learn these tools and we apply them in creative ways, we're going to be able to help any child to gain skills. They're going to help them to reach their full potential. And we are going to help them and give ourselves skills to help reduce challenging behavior that's preventing them from being able to reach their full potential. That's really what we're about here. Those are the kinds of things that we talk about. I mentioned that I'm a parent. I am not an expert in ABA. I am not an expert in autism. I sometimes like to think that I'm an expert in my child, but really, you know, he changes minute by minute. And just when I think I have it all figured out, he shows me I don't have anything figured out. So I humbly sit here telling you what I don't know is endless and boundless, right? But that's okay, because I'm excited to be on this journey and be learning and really sitting in this chair. Not that I'm not here continuing to learn, because I am, but I'm excited to help hook you up with the information that you need for your individual child. That's really what excites me about sitting here in this chair. When my son was diagnosed, I felt like I was being tipped off the edge of a cliff and that I was expected to fashion my own parachute while I was falling. That's really what it felt like for me. And I remember going, somebody help me here. And the people who reached out and helped me to hook me up with the right experts were parents. People who said, you know what, we've been doing this longer than you have. Here's what we know. It may or may not be right for you, but here's what we know, and take what you need and go hook yourself up and then pay it forward. So I'm here to pay it forward, because my child got hooked up with ABA therapy. His ABA provider was the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and he had intensive ABA therapy in our home for 5 years. Yeah. It seemed like the longest 5 years of my life. Now that we've been done for an entire year, it seems like 30 seconds in my life, an anecdotal 30 seconds in which I call it the autism miracle in my living room. And I mean it, because that's what it was. We got our child back. He's still working on things, and we're going to talk about some of the things he's still working on and that I'm still working on with him. But you know what? I fully expect we're just going to continue to make progress. He's going to continue to grow, and he's going to continue to gain skills, and that's a wonderful place to be in. But quite honestly, if somebody were to say to me today, this is as far as he's going to get, this is his full potential, this is as far as he's going to get, I would be able to continue breathing, because he has friends, he is social, he communicates, we have conversations that I never believed we would have. Never, never, never. And we're there. Yeah, there's still a whole host of things that he's working on. But he is going to be able to lead a completely full life. And he is a happy camper 98.9% of the time. And who could ask for anything more than that? Because they can't be happy 100% of the time, right? So that's why I'm as passionate as I am about ABA. And if it seems like I'm, in particular, a huge fan of the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, that would be why. I'm not apologizing for it. They gave me back my child. And I know what they do. So I am a huge fan of them. Do I know that there are other ABA providers? I absolutely do, and there are some wonderful ones, and I encourage you to write in and tell me who you particularly love and who's helping you to get your child back. And in fact, I encourage you to write in about a whole host of different subjects. I hope that you'll write in with your questions, your comments, your concerns. I really want to know what kinds of things will help you on this journey, because those are the kinds of things that we will prepare and have on the show. All right, there are lots of different ways in which you can contact us. If you're watching us on autism-live.com, you will see that on the top of your screen it says either live or rebroadcast. If it says live, then the Your Question box is active right now. If you want to type something in, it can be hello, this is what we did yesterday, this is the country from which we're watching or the state from which we're watching. All of that is fine. Hit enter and it shows up magically here. You don't have to log in. You don't have to fill out some exhaustive form. We're not going to send you spam. You just type in your question and it appears here. We will then be able to talk to you and hunt down the answers that you seek. If you're watching and it says rebroadcast, or if you're watching on any other channel that we're available on, then there are lots of ways that you can still get a hold of us. One of the easiest ways, of course, is our email. And there it is for you on the screen. You can email us anytime, day or night. You might be watching us halfway around the world at an entirely different time than when we are live on the air. That's okay, of course, because we want you to have access to the information. But don't feel like you're left out of the conversation. You're not. Please email us and we will get your email. We will talk about it on the next available live show. We will ask experts and we will get you back a typewritten response. Sometimes that takes a little while because as we find the expert and then they actually sometimes will answer you, so it does take a little while. Not that instant gratification, but still free. You gotta love that, right? And still hopefully connecting you with answers, or, sometimes it's more questions. So please take advantage of the email. There are also other ways that you can get a hold of us. You can phone us. We have a phone line here that can be patched into the studio if you want to be talking to the expert. A little later on today, we're going to have Angela Persicki on, and she's going to be talking about toileting. If you want to call in and ask questions about toileting, there you go. You can do that. If you call and we're not here and you leave a message, then we will get back to you as soon as we're back in the studio. Also want to mention too that wherever you are in the world, you have the potential to Skype into the studio. In fact, if you have a camera on your computer, we can put you side by side up on the screen with the expert that we have in talking about whatever they're talking about. Or you can be talking with me. If you have a blog that you're writing, an organization that you're working with, you have a fundraiser that you're doing, listening, Skype on over. We'd be happy to hear about what it is that you have going on. We want to be informational here and be a conduit for families to get together and share the information about getting things done, helping our kids to reach their fullest potential. So come on down, take advantage of it. It's there for you. Also want to remind you that you can get a hold of us through Facebook, that we have a brand new Facebook page, Autism Live, on Facebook. Please like us while you're there. We're growing in our likes because we're the new kid on the block. And you can answer the question of the day there. You can start a topic. You can comment on a video that's there. Do all kinds of things. And interact with other viewers, which I think is a really wonderful thing that you guys do already. You can also tweet with us. We really enjoy tweeting. We are going to be talking later on. I don't know why I'm laughing, because it's really not a good thing. But you can tweet with us. And we really appreciate when you do that. And we are going to talk about the 50-cent Twitter thing a little later on today. I see that somebody has already written in with a question, and it is a fabulous question, and I so appreciate this question, and I'll share that with you. The question is autism caused by metals in the vaccines? We're going to get right to it right today. And here is what I can tell you that any reasonable person should say to you when answering that question. I don't know. I don't know, and I don't know anybody who does know. And I think that that is the question that needs to be answered, right? But I don't know. And with all the experts that I've had an opportunity to talk to, there is no one who can conclusively say yay or nay. I know, as a parent, it's a deep question, and it's deeply disturbing, but I don't know, and I don't know an expert, and that's one of those things that I could go and ask 35,000 experts for you, but the answer is still going to come back at this point in time. I don't think that anyone knows. I'll ask it, though. I'll be asking everybody, but I have been. Trust me, I have, and that is a big I don't know. But thank you so much for asking it, and keep asking. Okay, so we were talking about the different ways in which you could be watching us. There are lots of different ways you can be watching us other than autism-live.com. You can be watching us on blip.tv. This is a great way to rewind, fast forward, pause, because we know you've got a busy life. You're starting to watch something and you're getting to the part of the interview that is going to help you, and it's time to get out the door to go to OT. So you pause it, come back, you can watch it later on. You can also do that on our YouTube channel and search those topics. We're going to be talking about toilet training today and how we absolutely can get it done. And sometimes, you got to hear it from a couple of different people in a couple of different ways for it to work for you personally. Isn't that the way? Because I used to be a teacher. I'm a former teacher, and you could teach something in one way to a group of students, and maybe half of them got it, but then you had to come at it a different way, and then maybe another way, and people need to hear things in same information, but hear it in different ways before it really clicks. So you might want to go to YouTube and type to our channel on YouTube, type in toileting, and see all the different ways the experts have talked about toileting. It can be really beneficial. There are still other ways that you could be watching us. You can download us for free on iTunes, which is a wonderful thing, and we appreciate any reviews that you give us on iTunes as well. It helps other viewers be able to find us. Whether you give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down, it helps other people to be able to find us. And we are available on Ustream, so just another one of the many ways that you can be watching us. And by the way, if there is a way that you would like to be watching us that is not on this list, please let us know, because it might be that we just don't know about it, and we'd like to know about it. You can help to educate us about the best way in which for you to be watching us. Sound good? Write in one of those many different ways that we mentioned. Okay, it is that time of the day when we like to cover the jargon du jour, the jargon of the day. This is the time of day. I really think of it as the warm-up. It's like the morning coffee, right? That we're going to take on one word, one phrase, one anagram at a time, and try to demystify it and figure out what in the hey nani are these experts talking about. It's important to make friends with the jargon because they're talking about our kids, and they're talking about our kids' skills, and they use jargon because it's very specific to a topic. So we need to make friends with it, right? It's not easy because we have 1,018 other things to do. And it doesn't matter though. We have to go at it a little bit at a time, just like we teach our children. We got this big, huge skill that we want to teach. We want to chunk it down into little increments in which we know we can be successful and find it rewarding. We don't have to get overwhelmed by the whole thing, just a little bit at a time, and you'll see that over time it starts to stack up. Okay. So our term for today, which is a really sometimes difficult term, is intraverbal. There it is. Yeah, what on earth? Okay, let's go for our actual definition, which is an elementary verbal operant that is evoked by a verbal discriminative stimulus and that does not have point-to-point correspondence with that verbal stimulus. And this is the reason why we not only give you the actual definition, but we give you a somewhat watered-down working definition. Because so much of the time, this is what we experience as parents. We go, okay, here's the word intraverbal. They're using this with my child. I'm going to look it up and see what it means. And then we get a definition like this and we go, well, that was just a waste of time, right? So what on earth does this mean for us? Our watered down version, our working definition, is something somebody says in response to the language of another person, conversational language. So when we're teaching our children in the beginning and we're trying to help them to acquire language, we talked about earlier in this week that we start with manding. Manding is when somebody requests something. So we're trying to teach the child a term or a gesture or to point to a picture to request something. That's manding. Then a little further down the line, we're working on labeling and that kind of thing. Then we will get to tacting. Tacting is not just labeling. It is labeling something and calling attention to it for the purpose of interaction, right? For conversation on some level, noticing something that the child looks up and sees the balloon in the sky and says, balloon. And they're saying it, they're calling it to our attention. We're looking up, we see the balloon. We have that moment of joint attention. We're both looking at a balloon and we're experiencing this together. That's tacting, really important. But eventually we want to get to intraverbals. So if I've taught a child the term yellow, and I've taught it from every possible conceivable way that I can teach yellow, and we've worked towards generalization so that we haven't just had to be one color. And on one piece of paper, we've shown the yellow duck, we've shown, you know, a yellow school bus. We've talked about yellow in all these different ways. And when I show something to the child and I say, what color is it? And the child is able to say it's yellow, right? They're labeling it. They're able to tact and they look up and see, you know, yellow balloon. So they're recognizing yellow in that context. But eventually, I want to be able to ask a child a question that does not contain the word yellow in it and have them give me the answer, pull up that information and use it as part of conversation. So that when I say to the child, what color is the sun? The child thinks about it and is able to retrieve that information in their brain and go, yellow. That's intraverbal. I didn't give them the word yellow in the question that I asked, but they were able to say yellow. They're using yellow in a conversation that doesn't have yellow in it before they bring it up. That is an intraverbal. And it is part of when we're teaching language, we go in a progression of teaching things. And that is one of the areas of progression, intraverbal, that leads to conversation. So it's a really important term. And it's something that if your child has some language ability, some is able to speak, it may be that your child, manding's not a problem. It may be that for your child, tacting is not a problem. But when it comes to intraverbals, that your child is experiencing some difficulty. And it may be that that's the way your child starts ABA therapy, or it may be that you start at the beginning and work through manding and tacting and eventually get to intraverbal. But in order for conversation back and forth to be successful, a child has to be able to do intraverbals. So it is something that we're going to talk about. It is something that as a parent we're going to use. You're going to hear specialists, the speech and language pathologist talking about that. You're going to hear people on the team talking about it. If you go and get your child diagnosed or check their progress, you're going to hear the word intraverbal. So let's make friends with it. It's just this response that is the beginnings of conversation, okay? Intraverbal. We also always have a question of the day for you. The question of the day, meant to get you keep thinking. It's so funny to me because we come up with the schedule weeks in advance, right? And we come up with the questions of the day weeks in advance. We have no idea, what's going to be happening in the world. And I have no idea what's going to be happening in my life, but it really is kind of scary. Because I looked at this last night, the question of the day after we got home from the fireworks, and I was like, oh gosh, how poignant is this question to me this week? What have you learned this week? I've learned a lot this week. One of the biggest things that I learned yesterday is that I need to be giving my child so many more opportunities to get together with groups of children in which there is not structured play. It's one of those things that you see it and you go, well, duh. But until you see it, there's so many things to think about. You can't think about everything. And my child gets together with groups of children, right? He goes to school on a regular basis. And this weekend, this Saturday, we'll be going to the Home Depot to do our kids craft thing. And we'll talk more about that later on. And there are lots of, he goes to camp. There are all these things. They're all structured activities. Even when he goes to a birthday party, it's very rare anymore. I don't know where you live, but where I live, there's always something at the birthday party. You can't just have a birthday party and have kids get together anymore. You got to have something. Even at my son's birthday, it was a science birthday, and Captain Leslie came and did science experiments with them. So it was structured, and that's wonderful. Structure is fabulous. It's good for our kids. It's absolutely one of the best things that we can do for them, right? But it's not all the time. There is not structure endlessly. And I watched yesterday as we went to a 4th of July celebration, and it was a bunch of kids in the pool. And coincidentally, it was actually 4 total different families. But my child was the only child at this event. So it really brought it home how little, because what was happening is that the siblings were playing with each other, right? And they would interact with the other sibling families. And my son would try to jump in, and he was watching their sibling interaction, and siblings interact with each other differently than outside people are allowed to, especially if you don't know each other. And he didn't know the vast majority of these kids. So he kept trying to do his, all the things that we've worked on joining a conversation and inviting others to play. He kept making those attempts, but he did not have enough practice at it, especially at this age, because he was one of the youngest ones that were there. The kids were mostly like 10 and up, and he's 9. And there were some preteens there and one teenager there, and it's a different thing. It is a very different thing, and I sat there and went, oh, I'm just not giving him enough opportunity outside of a structured activity to interact with kids. I need to take him, places. And it used to be easy, right? Because when he was little, I could take him to the local park, and he could sit in the sandbox with a bunch of different kids, some of them siblings, some not, and they would play. Well, you get to be 9 and they don't want to go to the sandbox anymore. It's really difficult. So this is sort of my whole mantra last night was, okay, how am I going to work this out? I got to find ways to give him unstructured time to play with a group of kids that are tween. I guess that's what they call that in-between age, not quite teenagers, but they're in between. Right? Just one more thing down the road. I know I can figure it out, but it's just like, oh, okay. And it really, I just felt so bad for him because he tried so hard. And, and he would be successful here and there, but largely he was unsuccessful. And it really, I don't think certainly the autism played a part in it, right? There were times when if he had been completely neurotypical and acquired language in a completely neurotypical way, maybe he would have been slightly more successful. But I think I could have stuck just about any 9-year-old in that circumstance, and it would have been difficult. So I got to cut him some slack. And at one point, I was sitting there going, I really, like, why? We haven't done right by this child. And then we got into cars to go to the fireworks, and he was sitting in the back seat with a kid that he, had never met before that day. And they were having a conversation that was so overwhelmingly beautiful. And I thought, okay, no, he's totally fine one-on-one. And they, at one point, you get into that mode as a parent where you're over scrutinizing. And I was listening and going, oh, well, a lot of it's about video games, and we need to have other conversations about other things besides video games. And it was funny because then we got to the fireworks, and I sat directly in front of 2 of the 12-year-olds and had the opportunity. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop or anything, but I had the opportunity to listen to 2 neurotypical 12-year-olds conversing with each other before the fireworks and during the fireworks. And I went, yeah, okay. It's largely video games. There was some other stuff, as there was in my son's conversation with the 11-year-old that he was in the back seat with. So I have to remind myself from time to time that I got to look at what the other kids are doing and not have these expectations that my son is going to be talking about, the purpose of life with an 11-year-old. These are the video games are what 11-year-old and 9-year-old and 10-year-old and 12-year-old boys talk about with each other until they start talking about, well, they talk about sports and they talk about video games, and until they start talking about girls. But even then, I think when 2 boys are sitting talking to each other, they don't talk overly much about girls. There's like a little conversation about the girls and then on to other things. Right? But I learned that he needs to have more unstructured time. I also learned a lot this week and learned a lot in the last 48 hours about how far we need to go. And I mentioned we're going to talk about the 50 cent thing. We are going to talk about it a little bit later into the program. But we have a long way to go. A long way to go. But I would love to hear from you. What have you learned this week? What has this week brought to you and shown you? Please take the advantage and let us all know, because we want to share with you if it's something that you've learned that's disheartening. We want to support you in that. We want to revel if it's something you've learned that's fabulous and wonderful. We want to support each other, right? So write in on Facebook, write in on the live forum there that, again, the questions box is live right now on autism-live.com, and you can also be emailing us in your response to the question of the day. Hey, we always have a topic of the day, which is now turned into the topic of the week, and this week we're talking. I can't talk today, but we are talking about teaching language, how we help our children acquire language. And also, honestly, we are also talking about later on in not only language, but social language, teaching social language. Like I was mentioning, my son being able to join a conversation and those skills, and that it's difficult because all the circumstances are different, right? But I watched him being a trooper yesterday, making the attempt. Boy, I was sitting with a bunch of people, some of whom I knew and some of whom I didn't know at all, and some I didn't know as well. And I was having to use my social language skills, and sometimes I was successful and sometimes I was less than successful. It happens. So different circumstances, but we're going to be talking about teaching language today. Great. And to that end, some of the different things that we're going to be talking about, we are going to go over our compliance tip of the week. We're going to be talking about generalization today. And as I mentioned, at the 11 o'clock hour, we're going to be joined by Angela Persicki, who is the Assistant Director of the Autism Research Group. She is going to be talking with us today about toileting. She was with us last week, and she is going to be a regular feature now on the show, and we're thrilled about that. She is a very exuberant young woman who gets so excited about helping our children, and she is a BCBA, a board certified behavior analyst, and she was with us last week talking about an event that she was at that parents attended and asked a lot of questions about toileting. And she said, boy, it was just really fascinating to us because it brought home that not everybody has gotten the message that toileting is something we absolutely know how to take care of, and that it's not a big deal, and that, you know, we have tried and true methods that work for toileting. And she said, I was really shocked that more people didn't realize that it is not this big, overwhelming thing. And I said, yeah, you know, I don't think that anybody really gets that. So you got to come back in and tell us, share with us everything that you know research-wise about toileting, about how you get this done quickly and efficiently. So I just think that that's a message of great hope that she's going to be sharing with us. So if you're at that toileting phase where you're getting ready to tackle it, you're in the middle of tackling it, or you've tried and it didn't work, boy, you're not going to miss that hour with Angela Persicki talking about toileting. We're going to take a break. When we come back, it is time for the compliance tip of the week. We know that compliance is so important, so stick with us.
Mostly the behavior started at night, but it was invading the day, where he would just speak one syllable and babble and pace around.
When she was a year old, she lost speech. She did never seem to request me for anything, even for food. He told me over the phone that I should just put her in an institution. I was devastated. I was an institution, a hospital. Yeah, isn't that nice?
He told me that it was possible or likely that Ruffin would never be employed, that he would never work productively, that he would not know that I loved him, nor would he love me, nor would he be likely to marry.
There's a 50% chance that he won't be able to talk at all, but if he does talk, he will only be able to, you know, make simple desire requests, I want, things like that. And probably by the time he was 10, he'd be in a home.
Doreen told me that he would recover, and Doreen told me that he would go to regular kindergarten.
I really have a very normal kid now, and lots of normal worries, but not extraordinary ones.
My name is Deli Popola, and I'm one of the creators of TheOutSpot.com. TheOutSpot.com is an online support system for families and specialists who are affected by autism across the whole world. Share inspirational stories, find resources in their area. Hope you can join.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. And it's that time of the week when we're going to take on compliance and talk a little bit about compliance. Why? Because, and we have here the thing for you, compliance equals, and fill in the blank. Because what doesn't it equal? When we have a child who is compliant and who enjoys being compliant, I really want to stress how important it is that our child enjoy being compliant. You know, we covered months ago the story of of course, there was the tiger, the so-dubbed tiger woman was it China, that she was the mom who constantly believed in making her children, you know, do what she wanted to do. And then, of course, there's a dad who has written a book, and I don't even know the name of the book and don't want to give attention to it because it gives me hives, but who was so strict that if his children, their blankets had to be a certain way on their bed, and if they didn't comply, they didn't get a blanket. You know, that's not the kind of compliance we're talking about here, and I want to make that abundantly clear. That kind of compliance raises children who are resentful and who don't want want to be at home and don't want to listen to us, right? We're trying to get our children to be compliant with things that help them, and we want them to enjoy it. When a child enjoys being compliant, man, it changes the dynamic of everything. And by the way, I'm not just talking about our kids, I'm talking about us too. And I'm talking about our spouses, our partners, the people we work with. When we are compliant and feel good about it, and feel like it's rewarding to be compliant, we are happy to be compliant again, and that is when we are truly happy, right? There are so many things that we do within a given day that if you stop and think about it, what are the things that you do within a given day where you're being compliant? And why are you being compliant? And why do you continue to be compliant? Yeah, there are some things that you can make the argument and say, well, I'm compliant with this because I don't want to get punished. Like when you ask the Joe average person, you know, I would imagine that a great deal of the time that you're in a car, you're not going above the speed limit. And why are you not going above the speed limit? And the first answer they're going to give you is because I don't want to get a ticket. I don't want to get a ticket. And I think that that's probably a part of the scenario. But I also think too, and try this on for size and see if I'm, talking crazy here. But part of it is too that in the times in my life when I have been speeding to try to get to someplace in a big hurry, not only am I afraid of getting the speeding ticket, but I'm having a reaction and I'm not comfortable, right? I'm nervous, I'm tense. It's not pleasant for me. And I think that part of the reason why I don't speed on a regular basis is I don't like that feeling. Because every time I have sped in my life, I did not get a ticket, right? There's a chance that I won't, but I know that every time I speed, I don't like the feeling that I'm feeling. And I like the feeling of how when I'm driving and I don't have to worry, I like that feeling. And I think that's the reason why I try to, and I want to be safe. I like the feeling of feeling safe in my car. And I think that's the main reason why, as much as I do, and I won't say that 100% of the time I'm within the speed limit because that wouldn't be realistic, but as much as I am, I think it's because I like the way my stomach feels when I am being compliant with that law. I just feel better. So how can we take this knowledge that most of the time we do things that we do because it in some way is rewarding for us, right? It's principle number one of ABA that in order for any behavior to be maintained, it has to be reinforcing in some way. By the way, that's good behaviors and bad behaviors. So if every time somebody did something, and I say bad, less than desirable, let's say that, because I don't know, bad is this term, what does it mean? What it means to me might mean something different to you. But behaviors you don't want to see in your child, right? You don't want your child to be drawing on the wall with the marker, probably, although some of you might be like, no, that's so okay, we want for them to express themselves. But let's imagine that you're renting and you don't have the money to cover it up with paint, so you don't want your child to be drawing on the wall with marker, and your child seems to keep wanting to do it. Well, there's a payoff. There's something about it that is really reinforcing to your child, that it feels good, it looks good, they're expressing themselves, they're liking it, right? But we want to achieve compliance, that they not draw on the wall. And we can try punishing, but you will see if you do this that then your child will start to be sneaky and find a way to draw on something else. It doesn't really take care of the problem if it's truly reinforcing. So how do we get our children to be compliant? Well, we give them something else to do. If what they really want to do is draw, there is a healthy way in which to draw, and maybe you put something on the wall, a dry erase board that they can draw on and get that reinforcement for it, and now your child is being compliant, right? And we want them to be happy to be compliant. If the child goes, oh, this is okay to do, wonderful, then they're more likely to be compliant with something else when we ask them to do it. And, It's not just me saying this. There's been tons of research done on this, both with kids on the autism spectrum and adults on or off the spectrum, that when we see that being compliant gets us something, we're more likely to be compliant. So what is that going to mean for you on a daily basis with your child, right? Because that's what we all want to get to. And one of the big aha moments for me, keep in mind, my child had been getting ABA therapy for over 4 years, and we had a real mental shift in our home of how we were going to talk to our son and how we were going to deal with challenging behavior through the course of parent training with ABA and through the course of the experience of having ABA in our home. So I felt like I was really up on knowing what to do and how to get compliance. And compliance is one of those things that it's not like you get it and you go, whoa, I'm so glad we're done with that. You got to keep on compliance, because your child grows and they find new things to do, and you got to find that way to get the compliance to be there and be happy. And then the child grows and you got to keep, or the child has a bad day and chooses not to be compliant, right? So it's something we're always going to be working on. But I had a fairly compliant, happy child, and I came to work here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders and had all these educational opportunities where I got to meet with experts and talk to them and got educated on a whole bunch of different things. But one of the biggest early aha moments was when I was talking to Hank Moore. And if you don't know who Hank is, then we need to get it back in the studio. Hank is awesome. If you've read the book, A Real Boy, he is the clinical supervisor on that case that was assigned to that particular case. And it was very exciting to me because A Real Boy was, that book by Christina Adams, was life-changing to us because we had not started ABA yet. So when I met Hank, it was like meeting a rock star to me. Excuse me. And so I was talking with Hank about compliance and other things, and Hank, he's kind of like a very skinny Buddha. He just has that kind of energy. And he said, well, you know, whenever a family says to me in a clinic, we're having a problem with compliance, the very first thing I think of and the very first thing that I ask is, how many opportunities have you found to praise the child lately? Because usually, if there's compliance issues, it's, you know, a couple of different things that it could be, but pretty much praise fixes it all. And I went, what? And he said, well, no, I mean, stop and think about it, because if you start praising the child, then they want to be more compliant. And if you haven't been praising enough, then the child sees, you know, this is, and it changes the parent, changes everything, just changes the whole dynamic. And he goes, it's just the easy, you know, the easy question to ask is, are you finding enough opportunities to praise? And as a parent, I just kind of like backed up and thought, oh my goodness, I don't think I'm applying this knowledge on a daily basis. And I went home, and for that day, because I have to remind myself on a daily basis, for that day, instead of thinking about, you know, trying to manipulate him into doing all the things I want, I just heaped on praise in all kinds of other circumstances for things that weren't related to the things that I was having gripes about. I just heaped on as much praise as I could find. And not only did I have the most compliant child the rest of that day, I was a happier person. And things just went that much smoother. And it was this like infectious thing that happened, because then I found myself praising my husband, and my husband started doing things I hadn't even asked him to do. I was going, what just happened here? So it was an amazing, amazing thing. Now, you would think that I would just spend the rest of my life praising everyone. No, because I forget this on a daily basis, and I have to be reminded of it. And when I see that we're having compliance issues, I try to channel Hank Moore, the wonderful Buddha, and remind myself that I don't have to be in the problem. I can be in the solution. And even though I got this issue going on over here that my son is having difficulty being compliant with turning off the video game when I ask him to turn off the video game, and that's there and it's real, and I can target it, and I can do a whole lot of intervention on that. What's equally as effective and sometimes more effective is if I just take everything else in the day and praise, 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 and then miraculously, when I say to my son, hey, dude, I need you to turn off the video game, boom, it happens. Because what I've done in the rest of the day is I've taught him that being compliant is always better than not being compliant. And really, that's what I want to teach. And of course, we don't want to raise children who are compliant with everything, right? But this also helps with that, because if I'm praising, it's still his choice. It's still his choice, because really, compliance is their choice. And if we make the right things, if we make things that we want them to be compliant with, and that's what I mean by the right things, if we make it rewarding for them, they are going to be so much more willing to be compliant in all kinds of other situations. It's like it generalizes, and we're going to talk about generalization in a second. But so this is my tip for today. If you are having compliance issues, try this. And by the way, if you feel uncomfortable trying this with your child, don't. Try it with somebody else. Try it with a coworker, try it with your spouse, try it with your partner, try it with whoever is kicking your can, whether it's at work or on your block or whatever. Try heaping praise on and see what happens. It is amazing. It's a really good thing. Okay, we're going to take a little bit of a break. We're going to come back and do the generalization tip of the week. We are still going to get to the 50-cent thing, so stick with us.
Skills is a revolutionary web-based program that incorporates comprehensive assessment, curriculum design, progress tracking, and treatment evaluation for children with autism all in one place. Developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. Our approach is based on over 40 years of research on the principles of learning and their application to improving the lives of children with autism. How does Skills work? Created with speed and simplicity in mind, Skills was modeled on an easy 3-step process. Step 1. Start assessment. Step 1 begins with our intelligent assessment system, which consists of a series of questions. This assessment is essential to identifying your child's level of skills compared to their typical peers across all areas of development. This includes assessing social, motor, language, adaptive, play, cognition, executive functions, and academic skills. Every skill has an assigned age, which indicates when the skill emerges during typical development. This means that each child is automatically presented only with lessons that are relevant to his or her age. Step 2. Choosing activities. It's now easier than ever to build an individualized treatment plan. In Step 2, you are presented with an individualized pool of activities that are directly linked to your student's assessment results. Each activity represents a specific skill that has been indicated by the assessment as needing to be taught. Activities are categorized by curriculum and then by lesson. There are 3 main types of skills: building blocks, fundamental, and expansion skills. Fundamental skills are necessary for successful everyday functioning. Building blocks are prerequisites to a fundamental skill. Expansion skills are non-essential skills, but may provide further enrichment in certain areas. After reviewing the activities available to you, you can quickly add your chosen activities to the treatment plan by simply checking the box and clicking the button. Step 3. Start treatment. Once you have selected and added the activities you want, you are ready to begin teaching. Skills provides you with all the tools necessary to design and manage an effective curriculum plan, such as printable activity guides that are customizable by the teacher, supplemental teaching aids including printable data sheets, teaching guides, visual aids, worksheets and tracking forms, detailed IEP goals and benchmarks for each activity, brief and visually appealing video tutorials, a variety of treatment progress and clinical timeline charts, and lots more. And since Skills is completely web-based, everything you need is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in one easy-to-access location. Skills users even benefit from unlimited access to a support community where they can ask questions and share ideas with a skills expert. Skills is always with you.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Hey, I love how you guys are using the interactive features today. It's absolutely wonderful, and I am going to get to all of them. Just want to bring up this one very quickly, though, because this just warms my heart. Somebody who wrote in on the line, you can see it on your screen right now if you're watching us on autism-live.com. I have learned this week that ABA works. My son has been in it for a week and a half. You rock. And he has very little language. Yesterday, when we were playing with his grandpa's dogs, he looked up at me and said, "I am going to throw the ball to them." And the person writes, "I teared up like I am now, and my brother-in-law's friend asked, why is she so upset?" And I realized that he thought my son was a normal kid. Well, I got to tell you, I love that, and I hope that everybody hears that. You're a week and a half in, and let me just tell you, this is an exciting thing. I shared the other day that about a week and a half into ABA therapy, I had a child who I couldn't walk down the sidewalk with. He just couldn't do it. I would hold his hand and he would pull and go at an angle until he was lying on the sidewalk. He just couldn't function walking down the sidewalk holding somebody's hand. And if you let him go, he would just run in a direction. Any direction didn't matter. It wasn't like he was running to something. He was just running. He liked, I guess, the sensation of running, and he would just run away, run into the street, run into a pool. So you couldn't just let him go unless you were in a completely fenced-in area. And even then, he was really... what's the word that I want? When he was in the hospital at one point because he had rotavirus, when he got better on the last day, I think they let him go home a day early because I went to the bathroom for a second and left a nurse there to watch him, and he started to dismantle the bed. He was about to be 3, and he could take anything apart. So if you put him in a fenced-in area, he'd be taking the fence apart. And we were about a week and a half into ABA therapy, and we took him to a Dodger game, and we were able to walk into the Dodger game and hold his hand. I would say this the other day, that my husband and I looked at each other, we were like, "What? This is crazy. This is absolutely amazing." And we said, "Well, is it the Dodgers? Or is it the ABA?" And of course we went home, and the next day took him for a walk around the neighborhood and saw that it wasn't the Dodgers. It was that ABA was helping him enough that we could walk, a week and a half later, we could walk down the sidewalk and hold hands. You talk about your compliance, but I love this. You're a week and a half in, and your son said, "I'm going to throw the ball to them." What a wonderful thing. You're doing the right thing, and I can't wait to hear back from you more such things, because it really is amazing how much progress our kids can make. And sometimes it's slow, and sometimes it's fast, and different things are going to be slow and fast, and all of our kids are going to end up in a different place, right? Because they all come in at a different place, they have different skill deficits, they have different capabilities, but progress is available for absolutely all of them. You gotta love that. So thank you so much for writing in and telling us. That's wonderful. Okay, it is time for our generalization tip of the week. And I mentioned generalization the other day, earlier in another segment, that generalization is what we're all striving for all the time. All the time. It is something we have to be mindful of. If it's not a word that is in your vocabulary, I know it's not the jargon of the day, but get ready because it needs to be a part of your everyday life. It's got to be something that's in your head that you're thinking about on a regular basis. And even if you have to, in my head, early on, I kept on putting generalization equals success, generalization equals success, generalization equals success. Because what generalization is, when we teach a skill to a child, we're going to start and teach it in this very contrived, sterile environment, where we point to something and say, what is it? And the child says it, and it feels like, how is this going to be useful in the real world, right? But we have to have an in. So we're going to teach it to the child in that way, and then we're going to gradually broaden the lesson, give it legs in the community, take them out into the community, give them lots of opportunities, and we're going to keep switching things up so that we're not only teaching it in one way, because what we're striving for, that generalization thing, is that at some point the child makes the leap from the lesson to applying it in new situations that it's never been taught. That they start to apply this in the myriads of different ways. So what I was saying yesterday about my son being at this event and being in the swimming pool with all these other kids, my son has worked on social language in lots of different contexts, and he was struggling with this new environment in which it was all these siblings of kids that he didn't really know, was struggling to find his way in. So what I was learning is we do not yet have complete generalization on all of the myriads of skills. Some of them he did. He was making the attempt, but when it wasn't working, he was having a hard time. He didn't give up. So the perseverance was kicking in there, and he was demonstrating generalization with perseverance, but he didn't quite get the conversation repaired. And so I have to give him more opportunities in different circumstances that aren't structured, because where he's had the opportunity has been in these structured environments. So I got to help him out. And what we say with generalization is that we have to make sure that the child can do it across time, so that they can do the skill, whether it's 10 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock at night, across people, so that they can do the skill with mom, and they can do the skill with the teacher, and they can do the skill with the camp director, right? Not just for mom or just for dad. They have to be able to do the skill across stimuli. So if I'm teaching yellow and I show them a yellow pencil, that they understand that it's yellow. If I show them a yellow rubber duck, it's yellow. If I show them a picture on a computer of a yellow house, they understand that it's yellow. Those are three different stimuli. What color is it? It's yellow. And they get that no matter whether it's a two-dimensional or a three-dimensional, right? So it's people, locations. I guess I didn't mention locations. That if they're able to do the skill at home, they can do the skill in the grocery store, right? We want to create all these different areas that they're going to be able to apply the skill. It's theirs. I always say that what I always think about with generalization is that moment when you say, by George, they've got it, right? It's mastered, but across all those different things. So what I want to talk about today in particular is generalizing a skill across people, because it's one of the easiest things we can do if we're mindful. And you guys have heard me say before about this takes a team, right? Anybody who thinks that they can help their child with autism by themselves needs to completely give over to the idea that that is not in the best interest of the child, because it's going to make generalization that much harder for them. Right? Haven't we seen this happen before, that you work on a skill with a child, whether they're neurotypical or otherwise, you're teaching the child how to do something that, mommy says, how old are you? And the child says, I'm 3, right? And mommy works on it, and then grandma comes over and says, well, honey, how old are you? In a different accent, right? And the child does not respond, I'm 3, because they're not used to having it worded in that way from this person with a different accent. Or you've been working on the skill with a child saying hi, salutations, and then you're going through the grocery store aisle and the clerk says hi to your child, and your child doesn't respond, right? Because they haven't had the opportunity to generalize this across people. We want to make sure that as much as possible, we're creating a team of at least 2 people, best success with 3, and then you're going to pull other strangers and grocery clerks and other children in and put them to work on your child's team, right? And you're going to be shameless about it. There have been times where I've been in line with the grocery clerk. I can remember my child being when he was really young and acquiring language, being in that cart in the front, and I'm going through the line and the grocery clerk says, "Hey there, what's your name?" And my son completely no response, right? And me saying, "Hey, could you ask that again?" And me prompting my child and then saying, "Now could you ask again?" And I'm not going to prompt. You know what? People are only too happy to do that. And if they're not, who cares? And you can say, look, you could help me out. They're ringing up the stuff. They're not having to stop doing their job. People are thrilled to do that. And not only that, I saw that at one grocery store in particular, that after a while, there was one grocery clerk who was so sweet about it. She would do it 5 and 6 times so that we got that many more opportunities in a natural environment. So for a while, I started just going through her aisle. Wonderful, right? You go, oh, we're getting all these opportunities, except then I had to very deliberately not go through her aisle because I needed him to generalize it to everyone who worked at that store, not just her. Right? We want it to be easy. We want our kids to be successful. That's for sure. And we set them up for success. And then once they have that success, then we got to make sure that we're really focusing on generalization. And honestly, very honestly, we have to plan for the generalization from the first moment that we're instituting the lesson. And if you're going this alone at home and you're running your team and you're using skills and you're doing CARDI learning, then you have to really make sure, if you're the one driving the bus, that you're planning from minute 1, the first time you introduce a lesson, and you write into it, here is how we're going to, and it gives that to you on skills. It gives you tips on how to work for generalization, but that you've got the plan in your head. This is going to be really important when we're talking about toileting at the top of the next hour, because this is a place where people make a mistake that costs them time and costs them energy. If you're working on toileting and you're saying, oh, and you're concerned about your child's gonna do their business in the toilet and you're gonna be successful about it, and woohoo, and the child is successful, we got it, right? Nobody can take that away from your child. And then you realize, oh, my child can't do that at the bathroom at Target. They can't relax enough to do, oh, they can't do it at Aunt Mary's house. Oh, we're going on a 5-day trip and my child is holding on to their bowels. And all that is a failure to plan for generalization, which means you're going to have to back up and add a whole bunch of steps in, but it's doable. You can do it. But if when you start toileting, you plan on generalization, so you get that toileting at home and you see that the child is successful and you're praising them for it, and you have on your schedule, well, we're 4 days into toileting and they've mastered it. It's time to take it to our friend's house that they're really familiar with their house, and we're going to set up camp in there for 2 hours this afternoon, and they've agreed to it, and we're going to work on toileting here. And when they get it there, then you go to grandma's house and you work on toileting there. And then from there, if you see that you got great success and you're making it reinforcing enough, yay, you pooped in grandma's toilet. I know, can you believe the things we talk about here? Then it's time to go to the store that you've already scoped out the bathroom, and you know it's not going to be high traffic, going to be relatively quiet, right? And you're going to get success in that one. And you're going to work up to going to a place that you've never been to before, that they've never been to before, Dodger Stadium, and there's people coming in and going out, and there's a lot, and your child's still going to be able to do it and be successful. That's when you have generalization. But you got to have that plan from the beginning. If you're working with an ABA provider and it's not you driving the bus, they're designing your program, great. They should be planning for generalization from minute 1. When you hear that a new lesson is going to be added to your child's program, ask, how are we working towards generalization on that? They should be able to come back with a whole bunch of different things. And it should be, like asking somebody what their birth date is. They don't have to think about it. If your ABA provider goes, huh? Well, I'll get back to you on that. You are with the wrong ABA provider. Don't mess with people who are not planning for generalization from minute 1, because generalization equals success. When your child is taught something and can do it wherever, It's lovely, and our kids can do it. It's very exciting. So strive for generalization. It is time, I'm past the time, but it is time right now for us to check in with the A word. This is the wonderful documentary that's being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, an ongoing documentary about a little boy named Jack Riley who has been diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. In this particular episode, he is turning 3. It is his birthday. He's been getting ABA therapy for about 7 months now, and he has made a tremendous amount of progress. It's important to remember with any kind of growth with our children, and this includes with ABA, is that sometimes there are going to be steps forward and sometimes there's going to be step back because the child is growing and asserting themselves, right? So we're not always going to have compliance. And this little boy has, in fact, had a new baby sister come to live at his house. He's a big brother now. It's a very new thing. And so we're seeing that, you know, he's going to have a little bit of a bumpy period here. It's okay, though. Everybody is striving to stay on point with giving him a proper amount of attention as much as possible and helping him to find language and compliance. So take a look at this week's The A Word.
Sun's coming up.
How do you spell apple? Jack?
A-P-P-L-E.
We went to the mall last night and got him some new shoes, and he rode the carousel, and I watched him for like a half hour, and you would never guess he wasn't like every other kid in there, except he was smaller than a lot of them. They run around with
That's so funny.
reckless abandon.
It's so funny.
That's so funny.
Hey, what color do you want? Look, I have green, yellow, and pink. What color?
Yellow.
So what do you say?
Yellow.
Yes, you can. Close. There we go. Oh! Uh-oh! Should we make him stand? Should we make him jump? Here, let's make him jump. Ready? Boink! Uh-oh! Look! What is that? See, it's a footprint.
It's a footprint.
It's a footprint. Cool, you want to do it again?
Take it.
While Jessica and Jack Riley are playing with Play-Doh, they are working on his fine motor skills. They include pincher grasp for picking up food, rotating the wrist for closing and opening the door. Having fine motor skills are needed for daily living tasks.
Oh, coolness. Wow.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Whose birthday is it? Say it's my
It's my
birthday. Say birthday.
birthday.
Say
It's my birthday. It's my birthday.
yeah. How old are you?
It's my.
I'm
3.
Yep, you're 3. Do this. Say 3.
3.
1, 2. Look. 3 fingers. Look. Right here. Look. 1, 2,
3.
3 fingers.
5 fingers.
Yeah, well, yeah, technically you do have 5. What is that?
I love it.
He's wearing a blue
Hat.
and a
Green.
hat and a
Red hat.
hat and a oops! He's not wearing a hat.
Yellow hat.
Yeah, it's a yellow hat. Red.
Red shirt. Blue shirt. Yellow shirt. Green shirt.
Yeah, oops! He's wearing it upside down. It's
It's a hippo and dog.
good. It's
It's a rabbit and frog.
good.
It's a pig and cow.
Very good.
I have a question for you. Why is tacting important?
Tacting is important because it helps with language and conversation too. When we first start off, we just have him identify labels.
It's a ladybug.
And then we move into frames, like adding article adjectives to it, like it's the dog. What is it? Say it's. Yeah, it's a chicken. And then now we're having him add 2 objects. So he has to say it's a blank and a blank.
It's a pig, cow.
Very good. And then we'll move on to like add adjectives in front of the words too. So like what he does already, he'll say like it's purple socks, it's a red shirt,
yellow suit, blue suit, red suit.
Just to help expand his language skills a lot more. Let's go, Jack Riley. You want to copy Susan? That's hilarious. That's so funny. You guys are so funny. Look at you guys. Are we buddies? Are we twins? Here, give your hand. You guys are so funny. What are you doing, Jack? Are we sitting? Yeah. I think you are thirsty. Let's get you some water. So cute. You even brought the chair over and everything. Funny. Come on, let's get some milk, Jack. Say, come on, Suzanne.
Close yourself.
Okay, let's go.
Cow.
Too much laughing and giggling in here. That's a good thing.
There's so many things that I love about this series, but one of the ones that I want to talk about today is that you get to see how much joy this is. And, you know, when my son was first diagnosed with autism and we were looking for what are we going to do? What are we going to do? How are we going to do by this child? Certainly ABA came up. It took a while, I have to be honest. It didn't come up on the first day, but it came up, and I remember doing some research on it, and there are people who have misconceptions about ABA. And I have mentioned before that when it started with our developmental pediatrician, that on the day when he was diagnosed with autism, and I said to the woman, what are we going to do? And she said, take him home and enjoy him, in a very thick German accent, which, you know, at that point, I don't think I'd slept in weeks anyway, and it wasn't my finest moment. Like, my reaction to take him home and enjoy him, and still, 7 years later, I still want to go, really, really, is that your advice? But then I said to her, well, what about this ABA thing that I've heard about? And she said, oh, no, promise me you won't do that. That will turn him into a robot, which was horrifying to me, absolutely horrifying. And because she didn't know what she was talking about in terms of ABA. She had a very antiquated idea. It would be like somebody telling you to put butter on a burn, right? It's misinformation. And yet, you know, there are people who still tell people to put butter on a burn, right? And here was this doctor 7 years ago who had been working in the field of autism for 50 years, and this is what she said to me. I didn't know that she didn't know what she was talking about, because you don't know in that moment. And so I did go home. I don't take a stranger, even an expert's stranger opinion for everything, especially where my child is concerned. And I went home and I did a lot of Googling and looked up ABA, and some of what I found was very intriguing and interesting. And these parents who were saying, you know, my child's speaking and da-da-da-da, and where they weren't before. And then I saw other people who had very negative opinions attached to ABA and talked about how aversive it is and how horrifying it is for the children. And one person who talked about her child being hit. And I immediately had you want to talk negative reaction. I was like, I'm going to let somebody come in my home and hit my child? I can guarantee you that that's not happening. Right? And so I was very anti-ABA until I had the great fortune to be in a family's home and to see what they were doing with their child and to see how well their child was doing, and saying, what is it you're doing? And they said, oh, it's ABA. And oh, you have to get ABA. You have to. Don't not do this for your child. It would be a great disservice to your child if you don't do this. And I think that there are still people out there who think that when children are going through ABA, it's this miserable, miserable experience. I will tell you that there are days in which your child will cry because your child won't be allowed to do some of the things that they have been doing for a while, which have been preventing them from making their progress. And to the child, in that moment, that feels terrible and uncomfortable, and they're not going to be at their happiest. But if anyone is ever hitting or threatening to hit your child, they are not doing ABA. ABA is about giving reinforcement for doing behaviors and finding replacement behaviors and taking away reinforcement for behaviors that we don't want to see anymore. So if the child, for instance, is hitting you and their payoff for it is that they are enjoying your reaction to it, we are not going to punish the child, but we're going to try to create circumstances in which they get that reaction from you in other circumstances, so they don't need to hit you to get the reaction and get the attention, right? And we're going to try to rearrange our lives so that they don't have access to hit you in those circumstances. And if all else fails and they hit you in those circumstances, we're going to ask you not to give the reaction so that the child no longer gets the payoff for it, right? But we're not punishing the child, and nobody is hitting the child. So just know that there are going to be times when your child is not going to be happy and thrilled, and you can go and watch the A word and see those kinds of moments. You can see very early on there's a moment when the child is playing with his trains and he lays down to watch the trains this way. Haven't we all seen that in our homes? Certainly a lot of us have. And the therapist simply picks him up and says, "Look right." And he has a half-hour-long tantrum because he wants to play looking at the wheels of the car that way. That's what he wants. He likes it that way. And you might think to yourself as a parent, well, why not let him? Well, if you do, then in the next milestone, when he's supposed to be playing with someone else, he's not going to be able to do that because he's watching his car this way. It's going to prevent him from making the progress that we know he can make. So we're just not going to let him. It's not a battle. She just, every time he lays down, she picks him up and says, "Look right." But he cries about it. He's okay. He's okay, but he's crying about it. That happens from time to time. Our kids will get frustrated because they've found a way that they think that works for them to negotiate the world, and sometimes we're going to push them to do different things, and it's going to be uncomfortable for them. But the vast majority of the time, our children are doing therapy. If it's being done properly, they are thrilled when the therapist comes to the door. They are thrilled to be compliant. They are thrilled to learn the different things that they're learning. And they love their therapists. Love them. That's when you know you're doing it right. In the very beginning of therapy, my son, after he got used to the fact that these people were coming and that they were going to play with him, and that they were teaching and helping him to be able to get the things that he wanted, that doorbell would ring and he would jump into the air and his little legs would go back and forth and he would run over to the door. And I can still remember, he wasn't speaking a lot, and then suddenly we had a language explosion, but I can remember opening that door and him saying, "Peter," that he was so thrilled that Peter was there because he knew he was going to have a good time, and he would launch himself at Peter. And Peter wasn't the only therapist, but it's like the memory that's fresh in my being that he would open that door and go, "Peter!" So thrilling. And we see that with Jack Riley in the series. He hears the doorbell. Oh, somebody's here to play with me. It should be reinforcing for them. And you see the joy in this family that, it's not all joyous, right? We're not trying to say it's all happy, wonderful flowers coming out of orifices for people, right? But if the vast majority of it isn't that, then we're not going to see the progress. And that can be something that you got to look at. Say, are we doing this the right way? Are we praising enough? Are we reinforcing enough? Because it has to be reinforcing. These therapists have to be reinforcing. They've got to play with your child. Got to. And if they're not, show them the door. Get somebody else. I know it's hard because you think, oh, it's the only ABA provider here, and it's the only therapist that can come during this time. Don't waste time. Your child's progress is at stake, and don't waste time with people who aren't going to do it right. So in any case, I love the A word for this because it shows us what it should be. We see the amount of progress. We do see that sometimes it's hard for the parents. We do see that sometimes it's hard for the child. We do see that sometimes we don't have the compliance. And what happens? Watch this show. Go back and watch it from the beginning. Watch the different segments. It's still unfolding. We're not up to par, up to date with the most recent episode, so you can watch ahead and see how this little boy is doing. I got to meet the family about 2 weeks ago now. They are delightful, and this little boy, oh, he's just the sweetest little thing and making such progress. He came in and checked out the studio, really loved it. I hope we have the opportunity to have them on the air with us at some point. But you do get to see the joy and you get to see the progress, and I think that's something that we owe you to see, so that you can see that while this is difficult, and it is, and it's hard, and it's expensive, it is worth it. It is so very worth it. Okay, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we are going to briefly discuss the question of the day, and then it's going to be time for us to talk about Mr. 50 Cent and what Mr. 50 Cent had to say and what Holly Robinson Pete has had to say to Mr. 50. So we'll be taking that on during the next segment. You're not going to want to miss this. Stick with us.
I'm Adele Nadowski, Director and Co-Creator of Skills. CARD e-learning is an online tool that has been developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD e-learning is the training that is delivered to the ABA therapists at CARD to train them on the principles of applied behavior analysis and to equip them with the knowledge they need to essentially deliver the ABA-based techniques during their therapy with the children that they work with. ABA has been proven scientifically to be the most effective intervention for children with autism. At this point, even the Surgeon General has come out with a statement suggesting just that. So we know that this is something that children with autism definitely need if they're going to improve and live the lives that we're hoping that they're going to be able to live. By being able to train people on this one particular method that we know works, and to be able to have all of your staff within your school settings on the same page, it allows you to take more of a multidisciplinary approach, and there's definite consistency going on within the team. It makes sure that every person involved with that child's treatment program, including the speech and language pathologist, the occupational therapist, the teachers, the aides, all of these individuals to be able to be trained so that they can all work together effectively with the child. Parents that are using CARD e-learning can use it either to train themselves, and then after having done that, they can implement different techniques with their child in order to teach new skills. But oftentimes parents might also be working either with an ABA provider, with a school, or they may have even hired their own therapist to deliver the intervention techniques. So CARD e-learning can be used either to collaborate with your school. It can also be used to train the therapists that are coming to the home of the parents, or it can also be shared with the ABA provider so that that provider can find out about it and perhaps implement it within their organization and train their staff. You can also do reporting for your organization. So you can actually look and find out which teachers are progressing, what their quiz scores are, and actually we can give you reports as well that will help you to compare the different teachers and their performances. CARD e-learning is really, really simple to use. You can log on to this as long as you have a computer, that's all you need, and an internet connection. And you can work on it any time of the day, anywhere that you're at. When you log on, you realize that right away. First of all, on the top of the page, there's a navigational tutorial. It's a how to use this page button. Simply by watching that video, it'll all kind of unfold in front of you, and it becomes extremely self-explanatory. CARD e-learning has 9 modules, and you can basically go through those at your own pace. You're going to be watching videos that are kind of like a storyboard with narration, but in addition to that, there's many different video clips of therapists actually implementing the techniques that are being described within the storyboard that you can also watch. And then of course you're able to pause, you're able to type notes right directly underneath the video that you're watching. You can save your notes, you can review them, and between each module you do take a quiz, and once you pass that quiz you can go on to the next module. And then after you complete all of them, you have a final exam. And by completing the final exam and passing with a score of 85% or better, you will be given a certificate of completion. Let me show you how easy it is to use CARD e-learning.
Welcome back to Autism Live. As promised, we're going to address the question of the day today, and then we are finally going to take on the 50-cent thing, Mr. Fitty. And, well, we'll get to that. All in good time. So our question today was, what have you learned this week? And several of you wrote in. And on this early morning after everybody was talking about fireworks and being at fireworks last night, somebody wrote in and said that adults with autism get even less help than children with autism in the UK. And while I am saddened to hear that, I am not shocked, because I think that's true around the world. It is one of those things that is going to have to change. There are too many children currently on the spectrum that are going to become adults for that to stay the way that it is. And as somebody pointed out to me last week, change only happens when parents in our community get together and say, this is a necessity, this is what has to happen. So I am sorry that at this moment in time that it is that case, but I'm going to suggest that you go to your local community support group and that you go to your more global support group and say, what are we going to do about this? Because it's going to take all of us. It really is. And we have to change this. This is not... We've got to level the playing field across places, and we have to level the playing field across ages and abilities. It absolutely has to happen. Somebody else who wrote in, and we're going to be talking about this in just a second, and said that 50 Cent is an even bigger fill in a word that is not desirable than I already thought. And again, we are going to talk about that in just a second. Love this next one that somebody wrote in and said that my son likes tea. And we all sat at the kitchen table the other night drinking our hot tea and having a wonderful conversation. I told my husband that it felt normal. And even though our son is only 9 years old, I felt like he was 20 years old, and just visiting his parents for the evening, he seemed so grown up. It really is, I gotta like that. It really is amazing sometimes how our kids will surprise us with the funniest things. And I know what you mean. My son is 9 too, and there are just times when he'll cross his legs and he'll look at me in a certain way and he'll say something, and it just pierces through my heart, because it's something, he'll come out with this sentence that's about life and the world and whatever, and it's just conversational. And I think if it were coming from any other 9-year-old, everybody would be like, oh, that's so sweet and that's so cute. But it is miraculous. It is absolutely miraculous, because I didn't know that we were ever going to get there. So I love the fact that you found this thing, tea, that he enjoys having the tea, and that it's conversational, and what a wonderful, wonderful thing that you have found. So congratulations to you. Another person who writes in and says, when family fails me, I can do it all alone. And while I understand completely what you mean about going it alone without your family, because sometimes there are people who are not going to support you, but I hope that you don't mean completely alone. We talk about this all the time, that this is not the journey to take completely by yourself. If nothing else, be with us and know that we're with you, because this takes a community. And yeah, your community is going to change, and it's going to be, you know, different people at different times, but have your community, accept the support and the love and the concern that those of us who know what this journey is like have for you and for your child. And if that can't be your close family, that's a pity. It's their loss, and it's certainly a hurdle for you to get over. But you're right, you don't have to have them to do this. Another person who says, I've learned that my son, aged 8, suffering with autism, was very brave when he had to say goodbye to all of his schoolmates and go to his school. He won't see it again because he has to change schools. And I hope that it's because he's going to a better circumstance. But our kids are brave. Man, nobody works harder than our kids. And our kids face challenges that we can't even begin to appreciate and take it on the chin, like amazing heroes. That's what they are, heroes. And there are more responses, but I've been promising you guys that we are going to get to, and we need to get to, what happened with 50 cents. We should have a little graphic at this point that says my 2 cents on the 50-cent thing. So as you're probably aware, if you've been watching the news at all, rap artist Curtis Jackson, who is otherwise known as 50 Cent or 50 Cent, made a comment on his Twitter. He tweeted, apparently he had a fan who clearly wrote in something that was objectionable and inappropriate. You know, and people make inappropriate statements, right? And we've talked about this last week, that our reaction is what we can control, right? That people are going to say things to us and we can't control that, right? But we can control how we respond. And so while the person was inappropriate, 50 Cent wrote back and in response and said, yeah, I just saw your picture, fool. You look autistic. So that was the first thing that he said. And then later on wrote back and said, I don't want, and I'm quoting here, I don't want no special ed kids on my timeline. Follow somebody else. So this is what he tweeted. And of course, I think a lot of people are disappointed. A lot of people are shocked. And there are people who are angry. And in fact, the wonderful Holly Robinson Peete had a response, and I want to read to you part of what she said, but I want to encourage you to go to www.hollyrod.org, which is the Holly Robinson Peete and Rodney Peete organization, their charity, and she has a blog there that's called Holly's Huddle, and you can read her entire response, and I really think it's very incredibly eloquent. It is an autism parent who is also a celebrity, questioning why you would respond this way and educating him, schooling him on how inappropriate what he said was. In every element that it is, to suggest that someone looks autistic and how really ignorant that comment is. And I can't think of a better word than ignorant, because that's exactly what it is. But she also goes on to say that you really need to stop and consider the population that you're talking to. When we're talking about 1 in 54 boys having autism, you know, and you have a huge audience, and how many of those people do you think? And she points out that her son, previous to this, has been a fan. And if he doesn't want any special ed kids following him, then he needs to realize who he is talking to. And I love that she calls him out. Well, let me read this part. And she says, if you've read your mentions today, I'm sure you have felt the wrath. This is, again, Holly Robinson Peete on her blog, Holly's Huddle on hollyrod.com, talking to 50 Cent, saying, if you have read your mentions today, I'm sure you have felt the wrath of autism parents. We are no joke. Don't you love that? And I've had the pleasure of meeting Holly Robinson Peete, and I could just picture her saying that. She says, we are no joke, neither is autism. We are not about to let you attempt to make autistic the new R word under our watch. Whew, right? Can you feel the heat happening there, right? And she goes on to say again that her son, that in these comments, whether he's saying that somebody looks autistic or that they are special ed, that he is talking about her son, one of his fans. She says he loves rap music and he is a huge, in all capital letters, fan of yours. He's a tremendous kid. He has to deal with so much trying to fit in. This isn't helping. And it's a wonderful letter, and I really encourage you to read the entire thing because I think it is the eloquent response to Mr. Fitty. And I hope, you know, when these kinds of things happen, you feel that really. But as I was thinking about this yesterday, and I did from time to time, I thought, okay, what is the silver lining in this? And I want to say that I hope and believe that there is a silver lining in this, because if someone who is supposedly as articulate as Mr. Fitty, people who know him, I don't know him personally, claim that he is. For someone at his level of success to make a comment like this and think that it was a nothing comment, I think clearly demonstrates that there is clear prejudice. I think all of us have experienced, if we have a child on the autism spectrum, or unfortunately will experience, a moment in which someone judges our child based on a label with a negative judgment, And there are so many times when we will be trying to talk to other people in our world, whether it be our family or our friends or experts or teachers, educators, and say, you know, in this particular instance, there is, prejudice, and we are often poo-pooed and told, oh no, any educated person would not think that, would not say that, does not feel that way, right? I certainly have been poo-pooed over the years. And I'm hoping that by having it be this visible with someone who has as many fans as Mr. Fitty does, that it will give us an opportunity to talk about this. We'll give an opportunity for those of us who have kids on the spectrum to have our friends notice and go, oh, wow, really? Yeah, no, that really is inappropriate. And maybe educate their children. And I am hoping that now, and I love that Hallie Robinson Peete says in her blog, I would have assumed that you were more educated than this, but I find myself, she says, I've met you in passing over the years, and I know you are a bright, astute businessman and a legitimate philanthropist, so it is with a bit of sincere confusion that I ask you, do you even know what autism is? And then she goes on to school him. School him. But I think it's, it is one of those things of just being gobsmacked about, do you know what you're talking about? And I think it's clear that he doesn't. So if he now can make a choice to be someone who speaks out and says, you know what? I am incredibly sorry. I did not know what I was talking about. I now understand, and here is what I'm going to do to right it. He can use his fame, his stardom, his influence to turn this around. And I want to put my 2 cents in and ask that he do that he take this opportunity, that he unwittingly stepped into a pile of poo, but I don't think he's the only person who has used these terms. We just saw that the movie 21 Jump Street came out, and in an advertisement for it, they were using the A word in a similar way, in an absolutely similar way. Shocking. With all the things that we know that happen, all the steps that a studio goes through before an advertisement is released, and that it could be left in there. Shocking. Shocking, right? But maybe this is an opportunity to educate some people who still don't know. So, Mr. Fitty, I hope that you will take this opportunity, and I want to put out an invitation to you that if you would like to come on Autism Live, if you'd like to send us a tape of you apologizing, we would be thrilled to run that. We would be thrilled to have on our program you righting this wrong and helping our community to deal with this clearly inappropriate language that is being used and that is not helping our children. So there we have that. That's my 2 cents. If you want to write in your 2 cents on the 50 cent, please write into us because it's disappointing. Let's turn it around. Use this moment, Mr. Jackson, and right this wrong. Okay, and thank you to Holly Robinson Peete for stepping up and using her eloquence and her audience to say what needed to be said so beautifully. Thank you, Holly. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about challenging behavior and how we can be more efficient, more effective working with our kids through their challenging behavior to lessen it or get rid of it altogether. Stick with us.
Here I stand, a man, someone who has overcome struggles, someone who has endured perceptions of what others thought of him, thinking he was stupid because he was autistic, or simply believing him to be nothing because he was different to them in their minds. But I stood my ground. I just wanted to say to the organization in general, alongside helping me to improve communicatively and socially, the other greatest gifts you gave me were the value of discipline and a good work ethic. To quote Anthony Kiedis, to celebrate you is greater now that I can. You helped me to realize that the harder you work, the likelier you are to achieve success. Having had to work very, very hard to recover from autism, this discipline has continued to serve me well. I also realized that you taught me a lot about and instilled within me a quality of having compassion and sympathy for other people. That you will be concerned more with the needs and wishes of others than with your own is something that I awe and I constantly strive to be. And in closing, the only way I can sum up card all of you is love. Everything you do to help families in need, you do out of the sheer love of wanting to make a positive difference in people's lives. And as I stand here before you as a mature adult, I have to say that I'm extremely grateful for your unwavering loving commitments to helping others and me recover from potential life roadblocks and become active and contributing members of society. While I can't overcome obstacles without a will, I cannot have a will without the love of those supporting me. And without love, I am nothing. Thanks again so very much for your love, everything that you've done and continue to do. Please give my best wishes to your families, everybody else with Cardi wasn't here, and especially all of your clients and their kids. I'm confident that they too will be able to overcome, and I know that they'll be successful with what they do as long as they continue to put their minds, hearts, passions, and best efforts into it. Enough said.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. In just a few minutes at the top of the hour, we're going to be joined by Angela Persicki. She is the Assistant Director of the Autism Research Group. She's going to be talking with us. By the way, she's also a BCBA, a Board Certified Behavior Analyst, and she's going to be talking with us about toilet training because she made a comment last week about how easy it is using the principles of ABA, and that it's something that they absolutely know that they can have success with working with anyone, that they can teach them toileting. And I just thought that was too brilliant, and said we need to talk about this some more, because there are a lot of you out there I know who feel like it's just not going to happen for you. And I know that when it does happen for you, how much better your life is going to be. There was one person who wrote in, and I just loved it on Facebook one of the days. They said, you know, we finally have toileting and we are just enjoying the freedom and the independence, enjoying the freedom and the independence of toileting. So I want you all to be able to be there. And not only that, I want that for you as a parent, but I want that for your child, because there is a pride that comes with having control over that it mushrooms and grows into other things. So really think that that's a remarkable gift that we can give our children. And it doesn't have to be be horrible. It doesn't have to be lengthy. It can be something that is done quite easily. This is what Angela has told us, so she's going to come in and put her money where her mouth is. But it's time for us to talk a little bit about challenging behavior, because all of our kids at some point are going to demonstrate some challenging behaviors. And one of the things that I hear you guys talk about on a regular basis, and a lot of times you guys will write in and ask questions and say, well, my child is doing this. Is that just the autism, or is that something else? And I want you to know that I ask the same questions, right? And we're going to ask those questions, and there's nothing wrong with asking that question. But here's what I want you to know. It kind of doesn't matter. Okay? Ask the question. Feel free to ask the question, because I want to know that question too. And my son suddenly does something. I go, is that the autism? You know, like somebody show me what, you know, and then I go back to the definition of autism and look and go, oh, that's not on here. Or I go, oh, that is on here. But really, it kind of doesn't matter, because we're going to attack it in the same way. We're going to target it. Attack sounds really horrible. We're going to target it in the same way that we would if it's on the diagnosis criteria or if it's not. And we have equal opportunity to change it and turn it around, whether it's on the diagnostic criteria or it's not. So ask the question, but know that it doesn't matter. What we want to know when we think about challenging behavior is that all behavior, ready for this? All behavior is communication. Your child is trying to communicate something to you. And it's really important that we start to think of it that way, because when we do, we don't have to get emotionally involved. If somebody asks me for a glass of water, I don't have to get into a whole emotional thing about why are they asking me, right? It's just somebody saying, you know, can I have a glass of water? Yeah, sure, you can have a glass of water. Go, you know, not emotionally involved. But when it's our child and they're tantruming on the floor, we tend to take that personally, don't we? It's a whole big host of things that we go through emotionally. It's, oh, what am I doing wrong? Oh, why is my child doing this? What did I do wrong on this day that my child, you know, I'm not a good parent, or, oh, there should be a way to deal with this, or, oh, people are going to judge me. I mean, you know, there's a whole menu of things that we can visit that are not productive for us in that moment, but that will go there, right? I go there too. But whenever we can, if we want to be our highest, most effective, most efficient self, we want to have an emotional divorce from that and see the behavior, see it happening over there and go, okay, that is some behavior. That right there is some behavior. And I know, because we've talked about this before, and experts have said that behavior is communication. So that is some communicating behavior right there, right? We're not making fun of it, but we're just noting what it is and realizing it is not our fault. It does not mean that our children are hopeless. It is some behavior and it is some communication. So we take a look-see at it. Now, the next step is to recognize that if this behavior is happening on a regular basis, there is a reason why it is happening. In some way, it is being reinforced. Now, if it's the first time that your child is throwing a tantrum, I don't know you. First of all, I've never met you. But I suppose there is that moment in every life when it's the first tantrum, right? Or if it's the first meltdown, or it's the meltdown that's happening in a way that's never happened before, you know, you kind of want to look at the circumstances and ask yourself, all right, what's going on here, right? By the way, we want to do that in all circumstances where there's behavior that's challenging. And the quickest way we can do that is by getting ourselves a sheet of paper and putting 2 lines down the paper so we have 3 columns. And across the top of the paper, we're going to write an A, a B, and a C for each column. The ABCs. We all know about the ABCs, right? Now, the A column is going to be for antecedents, and that's what happened before the behavior started. But we're not going to deal with that for just a minute. The B column stands for the behavior. So in the moment, when the child is engaging in the behavior, you're not going to pull out your piece of paper right there, right? Because in the moment, you're going to stay calm. You're going to be talking to yourself and saying, this is behavior. This is just behavior, but I'm going to make sure that it doesn't turn into something else. So I'm going to make sure that my child is safe. Everybody else is safe. I'm going to move anything that could get broken out of the way. And I'm going to observe this behavior, but I'm not going to feed it. I'm not going to try to talk to my child. I'm not going to try to change their mind right now. I'm going to observe the behavior because I'm going to turn into a scientist for a moment, a cool, calm, detached scientist. I'm looking at the behavior. You're not going to give it attention, but you're also not going to walk away from it. You're not going to ignore your child. You're just not going to address the behavior. If you are in a public situation where it's particularly humiliating to you and you have the capability to safely pick up your child and remove them from the situation, you may do that. But for a lot of our kids, that's not going to be possible, right? But in that moment, you just deal with the fact that my child is engaging in behavior, clear the way, deal with it as best as you can in that individual moment. You're going to make a judgment call about, how wound up are they? Are they going to be able to be here and get through this within a short period of time? Or do I need to try to motor my child safely out of the store? And what measures do I need to do so that I don't get hurt, my child doesn't get hurt, and nobody else gets hurt, right? It's upsetting. But it's difficult, right? It's possible. So in any case, but you're looking at the behavior. You're noticing what the behavior is so that when you have a free moment, once you've gotten your child to the car and got them in the 5-point harness, which single hardest thing to do while they're tantruming, right? But you got to stay patient, be blocking so that you're not getting hit. Hard stuff. Been there, done that, right? But once you have them hooked into the harness, you sit there in the car, you take a minute, you take a breather, and that's when you get the piece of paper out. And you start filling in that behavior column. And you say to yourself, okay, what did the behavior look like? And so the behavior, you were at the birthday party and your child started to scream, they threw cake, they flung toys, they hit you, they hit somebody. You just dispassionately writing down what the behavior was. There was screaming, there was yelling, there was biting, it went on 5 minutes, whatever. All right, that's the B. The B is the behavior, and you got to write down, the experts call it the topography of the behavior, but think of what did it look like. And keep it as factual as you can. Just the facts, ma'am, right? Dragnet. Once you've got the behavior written down, then move on to the C column. The C column is the consequence. What happened as a result? Did you pick up your child and leave the party? Did you just push all the chairs back and let your child throw a tantrum and ask everyone else to please, keep busy doing other things? Or did you get on the floor and start talking to your child and say, please stop doing this. Please don't make an idiot of me. Don't make me look bad. Did you offer them a cookie? Did other kids crowd around and point and laugh? What happened afterwards? And try not to judge yourself in that moment. Sometimes when you're having that first calm moment after the storm, you sit there and go, oh, when you have to come up with the consequence, you go, oh, I blew that. I totally blew that. I paid attention to it. I said that, forgive yourself. You are a human being. It was stressful, but note it. Put it down in the consequences because it becomes a teaching moment for us, right? As the parent. So write it down under the consequences. Now, once you got the behavior, you got the B, and you got the consequence, now is the moment to go back to the A and try to remember, get in your little mental time machine and think, what happened right before that happened? What was it? Did somebody step on your child's foot? Did somebody take a toy away from your child? Had you just put a demand on your child? Was there a lot of noise? What happened right before this behavior started? Right before. If you want to, also note I would note the time that all this happened to. As you're thinking about what happened right before, you go, oh, well, it kind of goes back to 10 o'clock this morning. Make a note of that too, but make a note at the top. And they hadn't had lunch. It's been 3 hours past lunchtime. Make a note of that. Okay, but really for the A column, you want to think what happened right before. Think of the trigger. What really, there might have been a whole lot of things that armed the weapon, but what pulled the trigger? That's what you want to know. Okay, and then start to keep a log of this behavior. You're going to see patterns. You're going to start to see, oh, well, this challenging behavior happens every time I put this particular demand on my child. If it's truly challenging behavior, then you really are probably very motivated to have it change. And one of the things that I really strongly want to recommend is that you consult with a BCBA, a board certified behavior analyst. We have one who's going to be joining us in just a few minutes to talk about toileting. But these are people who are experts in behavior, and they are capable of doing something called an FBA, a functional behavior assessment, where they're going to be able to look at all the things that are happening and try to determine what the function of the behavior is. Remember that rule number one is that in order for any behavior to be maintained, it has to be reinforcing in some way. So if your child is regularly engaging in tantrums, there is a reason why. They are getting some kind of payoff. And it may be in the moment that you're sitting there and thinking, well, that can't be. That can't be. Of course you're thinking that. We've all been there before. But a really good behavior analyst who has experience with autism, and important to ask them if they do, and has an experience with challenging behavior, is going to be able to sit down and tell you what is reinforcing this particular behavior. Yep, we see that usually there's four main culprits for functions of behavior, but sometimes it's a combo platter and sometimes it can be something different. So it's not okay to guess, because sometimes the function of the behavior, the reason why the behavior keeps happening, is that they get attention. Look, you don't have to go far. Pick up a tabloid and you can see adults who don't have autism who are engaging in bad behavior because they love the attention. And by the way, it's not good attention in those cases, but that's a little reminder to us that when you are seeking attention, it doesn't matter whether it's good attention or bad attention. That there are kids, go into a classroom and you will see this on many occasions, there are kids who will engage in absolutely anything just to get you to yell at them, because that is attention. And a lot of times as parents, we inadvertently, by accident, will reinforce challenging behavior by giving it attention. Sometimes it's somebody else. Sometimes it's that little old lady in the grocery aisle who sees your child crying and walks up to give them a lollipop, thinking that that's going to help the circumstances. And you want to go, really? Really? What you're teaching them in this moment is, if I throw a big enough tantrum, some well-meaning little old lady's going to give me sugar. Right? So sometimes it's not you, sometimes it's other people giving attention, but attention is one of the big four. Another one is access to someone or something. That if our kids, think about this for a second, our kids, when they were born, they cried, they got fed. They cried, they got, their backs patted. They cried, they got picked up and held. So it is not a far leap to think that I'm going to cry and somebody's going to do something for me, right? A shift has to happen. We know that that's what the terrible twos is, right? And it's not just kids on the spectrum. But by the way, the reason why it's not the terrible threes is hopefully by the time a typically developing child is 3, they have enough functional communication skills that they can properly mand and ask for access to the thing or the person. And they don't have to tantrum. But for our kids, if they don't have functional communication skills, they are still on that page. I am going to cry and I'm going to throw a fit, and then somebody's going to get me something. It makes sense, right? But we can change that. Third biggest culprit is escaping something. There's something they don't want to do, some place that they don't want to be, something that's scary to them, something that's just aversive to them on whatever reason they want out of it. The child doesn't want to take a bath, and so they're going to engage in challenging behavior. They're still going to end up having to take the bath, but the fact of the matter is, if they delayed it for 10 seconds, excuse me, that's rewarding enough, right? That they will continue to do that behavior a lot of times. So we got to look for that as well. And of course, the fourth most likely suspect, that is the hardest one to diagnose and the hardest one, I think, to fix, is when there is something about it that is automatically reinforcing, right? You see the child who does this with their hands. And the reason why they're doing this is that it feels good to them. There's, try it. There's something, there is a pleasurable thing about it for some of our kids. But that can also be targeted and changed. We're just going to give the child stimulus from other things not doing this, things that are more appropriate. But imagine for a second that you don't take the time to get an FBA. You don't take the time to really figure out what is the function of this behavior, and you decide for yourself, oh, it must be attention. I'm looking at it, it's got to be attention. And so you implement a strategy that tries to give attention in different ways and not give attention to the behavior, and you see that it doesn't work. What you've done is put your child at risk. You've put everybody else around them at risk, because when children tantrum, there's the potential to get hurt, or if there's other challenging behaviors, there's the potential for someone to get hurt. You've wasted precious time by guessing. I'm just going to guess for a second that you don't do that with your car. You don't drive your car and have something break and go, okay, I'm looking at it, I think it's the transmission. Let's spend $400 and have the transmission changed because I think I know, right? You don't do that. You drive it to a mechanic and you say, my instinct is that it's transmission, but I'm going to let you look at it and you decide before we try anything, because it's going to cost me money and time and I want it to be safe. Please treat your child with as much respect as you treat your car. Don't try to self-diagnose. Have an expert look at it. It's going to save you money and it's going to save you time and it's going to keep your child and your family and everybody else safer. When it's challenging behavior, don't try to mess with it. What the BCBA is going to do is not only find the function of the behavior, which is going to save you time, they are going to give you steps that you can follow to quickly target the behavior and turn it around quickly, and your life is going to change. It is a wonderful, wonderful thing. By the way, if you got an ABA program that you're working on right now and working with an ABA provider, there is somebody on that staff who's a BCBA who can do this for you. Just ask them. Ask them and say, hey, we're having this challenging behavior. Can we come up with the function of this behavior and a strategy to target this behavior? That's the kind of communication that is brilliant when you're working with an ABA provider. If you aren't working with an ABA provider and you haven't started ABA before because you feel like you can't, you're so busy dealing with a challenging behavior, you can consult with a BCBA and do it to have them come in and target just that behavior. You can absolutely do that. You don't have to start your full ABA program. Target that behavior, see what happens, because you're going to come back and want the full program. You're going to see how great this works. All right. But don't just let challenging behavior go. Don't let anybody tell you, oh, they'll probably just outgrow that. Steaming pile of poo. Not the case, and it puts your child at risk for all kinds of things and puts your family at risk and your happiness at risk and their ability to reach their full potential at risk. Don't do it. Don't put it off. Target these things one by one. You will be happier, your child will be happier, and you will see more progress. All right, but don't get bogged down in the, is this autism or is it not? It really doesn't matter. You're going to target it no matter what, and you're going to be able to turn it around. Okay, we got to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to be joined by Angela Persicki. She's a BCBA, and she's here to talk with us about toileting. The forum is open. It's free. You can be writing in right now. If you're at autism-live.com, it says live. You can be putting your question in right now. If you're watching us in rebroadcast, you can be emailing us. You still can call us. When we come back, after we introduce Angela, I'm going to ask Matt to share some of those different things with you so you can be asking your questions. But we're taking on toileting. Stick with us.
My name is Crystal Shepard.
I'm Pete.
And our son Logan was diagnosed in February of 2003. Wow, it seems like a long time ago. Yeah. We were fortunate enough to find CARD when he was 20 months old.
Go Logan! Woo!
and said, you need to go to this place. I've researched it. You need to go right now. So I went and knocked on the door, and we found Doreen.
Doreen, we sat down, and I'll never forget what she said. She goes, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get him caught up and make sure he never falls behind again. I was like, that's it, you know.
He's a very fun, popular kid.
Rock star.
Rock star. He's a drummer, quite an accomplished drummer. He never stops talking. He's got a funny story and a smile for everybody that he meets. And it's pretty amazing. He's a completely different kid. Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
My name's Monica.
And I'm Mark.
And we have a son, Riley, and he is autistic.
Riley was almost completely non-communicative at the time that he was diagnosed. Really no language, no interest in speaking. And one of the big changes is he independently states a lot of things now.
I need to walk.
You need to walk? Make him walk. Asks for things that he wants, responds appropriately.
Hi, Daddy going.
Oh, so nice. We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Teacher has some glasses.
And now she engages with everybody. It's wonderful. She likes to play, and she's very affectionate, and she expresses that now. Her language has gotten a lot better just in the last 4 months. It's amazing.
Since starting with CARD, Amaya has made a ton of progress, and we couldn't be more grateful that she has become potty trained, started using utensils individually. She is learning how to navigate public, is holding our hands, and is just wanting to be around people more. So we're so grateful for everything that you guys have done.
Hi, Dr. Grandpa. Congratulations on your 20-year anniversary of CARD. I love all my CARD teachers. They are the best. And now I'd like to play you a Beatles song. It's called Cross the Universe.
I first saw Dr. Grandpa speak at a biomedical conference somewhere, and I was just so impressed with her. She stood up there and she talked with such confidence about recovery and what she could do for these children, and she had a whole curriculum, and I was just so impressed. But she said things like, teach them, help them to develop these other skills that they have. And I thought that was so neat hearing that from her, that it would be good for them socially and help them to bridge with others. And so over the years, that's actually something my son has developed. If he hadn't had speech therapy or OT over the years, he probably would be just about, pretty much the same child still, not so different. But if he hadn't had CARD, he would be a completely different child. This program has unlocked the door for him to have a bright future.
Bye. Thanks for watching.
My name is Rachel Pokorski, and I have a son, Kyle Pokorski, who's 7 years old now.
Cool art by Kyle.
Around 15 months, we noticed that he had lost some speech, that he was head banging, he had tantrums, and we were lucky. We waited and we got in with Card, and it started working right away.
I have another exciting feature. If you put more marbles in, they alternate.
He's in a second grade class. He's at the top of his class. He reads over 100 words a minute. He's reading at 5th grade level. He loves space and astronomy, and he'll tell you, why does Venus rotate backwards? Yeah, why don't the marbles go up? Why do they go down?
Because gravity.
And he's always wanting to know more.
Why you're the one that takes the microphone?
He loves to surf.
First, I didn't want to surf, but now I love to surf.
He loves to horseback ride.
I won a trophy.
You have made a difference in his life.
Card helped me to save.
I owe everything to you. Now, who built this?
I did.
And are you a good builder?
Yes!
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We are here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. And as promised, our special guest right now is Angela Persicki. She is the Assistant Director of the Autism Research Group, and we've asked her to come in. She's going to be coming in on a regular basis now, and we asked her this week, on the air last week, we asked her if she would come in and talk with us about toileting. Because you said something last week that I thought was life-changing, earth-shattering. You were talking about talking with a group of parents and a question and answer forum, and that they asked a lot of questions about toileting and how great it was that they were asking the questions, because that's something that, and with all confidence, you sat there and said, because we know we can do this.
Yep.
This is something that we totally can take on, and it doesn't have to be a big deal, and we know that we can help all of our kids with this. And then you said it with such confidence that I just loved it and said, oh, we got to do a whole segment on this, because I think there are a lot of our viewers who don't view it that way.
Yes, and that's what I realized by talking to the parenting group as well, is that they had so many questions about it, and that's why I was so surprised, because we deal with this every day with every single case, and it's not one of our biggest challenges.
And that is a lovely thing to hear, because for people at home, it's probably in those top 5 things, if you don't have it, that you're longing for and wanting to target, and if you don't have it, it seems insurmountable, like raising $1 million. Like, how on earth can we possibly do this? And to hear somebody say, oh, that's not a problem at all, is great. So tell us, obviously there's been a great deal of research done on this, and you guys have been doing this for a long period of time. So tell us what the secret is.
Okay, well, first to start off, this has been researched all the way back into the 70s. So, and some of the studies that came out showing that they can do this within a day was like 72, 74.
Okay,
so,
and is that research with typical kids, or?
No, with individuals with developmental disabilities, and they had adults and children as well.
Okay.
And the big names for that, Azrin and Fox, they conducted most of these studies back in the 70s. So, and we use the same procedures to this day.
So this is not a new toy.
Nope.
This has been around for a while. Azrin and Fox. Okay, and if somebody wants to look at the actual studies, they can write to us and we can put them in touch with where to find those studies. Okay, fabulous. And there have been books written on these subjects, Azrin and Fox.
Azrin and Fox wrote a book, and it actually states on the cover, effective toilet training in less than a day. So.
Okay, in less than a day. All right. It seems like crazy talk, but let's but let's be crazy. Let's walk down crazy for a while. Okay, so what are the main things that we need to know?
Okay, well, very first, you want to dedicate a whole day or a couple days to this. So do not start it during school when they have a lot of activities, anything like that. You need to dedicate your whole day or weekend to this.
Okay.
So
Like planning a vacation, you're going to put it on the calendar.
Exactly.
And you're not going to allow anything to interfere with that. That's just, you know, for all intents and purposes for other people, you're out of town. You're not going to a party that night.
Nope.
You're not flying to your niece's wedding.
Nope.
You're taking on toileting and
all day.
3 days?
Yes, about 3 days is probably the max. You know, for some individuals, it may be a little more difficult, but consistency, it's all about consistency. And if you dedicate a whole day or 2 or 3 to this, it will work.
Okay. So kind of think of it as potty boot camp.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right, so you've marked it off on the schedule, said we're clearing the decks. You're going to go to the grocery store ahead of time. You're going to rented videos or whatever, so you're not having to run out to the red box. You've got enough stuff so you don't have to be anywhere. You're going to deal with this.
Yes.
All right. Do we need to have any special tools?
No special tools. You need to get rid of the diapers for those days too. And I know that's the scariest thing.
Yeah, jumping off the cliff.
That's the scariest thing. But we'll talk about the procedure in a minute, and you'll see why taking off the diapers is so important.
Okay.
And also, the diapers prevent, you know, the wetness and the feeling and everything like that. So there's no natural consequences if the child does have an accident.
Right.
So the way we do it, we make it so really no accidents are going to happen.
Okay.
But do be prepared for that, of course.
Right.
But it's not going to be accident after accident.
Okay. So a couple of points of clarification, though. We're saying get rid of the diapers, although you're not excuse me, totally getting rid of them because you want them at night for a little while, right?
Definitely.
Okay. But I think, you know, great symbolic move is move them someplace where they're not. A lot of times, you know, the diapers are right where the kids can see them all the time, and there's an expectation there. But put them someplace else, so they have to be in a drawer, so that it's a part of the pajama putting on, right? But just not there. I have a frog, sorry. Okay, and then also because you are, you know, we're going to try to avoid the accidents as much as possible, so maybe on the list of things to have, make sure that you have laundry soap that's there, although we're going to try to minimize that. But that's on your list of things to have around the house so that you don't have to run out to the store to get
clothes. Probably use, you know, some clothing that's not brand new. Have them in some sweats or pajamas or whatever it is.
And you got to have some big girl or big boy underwear.
Yes, definitely.
So that's one of the things that you got to have on your to-do list before. And I would imagine that getting cool big boy underwear or big girl underwear that maybe even the child had a choice in might be beneficial. All right.
And for the bathroom, if the bathroom is causing any anxiety for the child, because I know that there are some children that are afraid of the toilet. Put up posters, have a DVD player in there that they get to watch only in the bathroom. Anything fun, make it part of the bathroom experience.
Party central in the bathroom. I love the idea of posters. That never occurred to me. But we at the time when Jen was going through this, we borrowed a portable DVD player from somebody. I know they're not as much around anymore because people are using devices and things. But somebody might have some, or you charge your phones and have them ready so that. But we had a little portable DVD player and had a disc that had little short cartoons on it that he loved. That made the bathroom party, and that was the only place that video player was.
That's the next thing I wanted to say. Whatever is most reinforcing for the child, so they're highly reinforced item or snack. A lot of times we'll use snacks like candy because kids don't get a lot of candy. And so candy or ice cream, anything that's like their favorite thing in the world, that will be only for potty time. And only for doing the correct potty routine. So DVD with if it's a favorite movie, that will only be played while he's in the bathroom.
And this is a great time when we're working on something like this to let you might have a rule like there's no eating in the bathroom. I think most people have that rule, right?
Yeah.
You're going to let that fly for this. You're going to change the circumstances because we're going to make it really reinforcing. It may not be that, none of us want to have DVD players and TVs and phones and things like that in the bathroom on a regular basis. But for this, we're going to make allowances and say, hey, we're pulling out the big guns, making this place reinforcing.
Yes.
It's not forever.
No.
And we're not going to constantly give a piece of candy to the child for doing the proper toileting. We can do this for a short period of time to get the job done. We're getting the job done. Okay.
And the way we're looking at it is just 1 to 3 days of really reinforcing, and then you start fading it out. So, and we'll talk about that more towards the end.
Absolutely.
The next thing you want to do if your child is verbal, is if he has language, or if he doesn't, you need something to indicate that is what is happening. So a card with a toilet on it, like a picture exchange type of card, or the sign for potty in
which I
sign
don't know
language.
what that is.
I believe it's this.
Oh, that's a little P? Okay.
So that, or anything your child can do to indicate that's what needs to happen, and you want to practice before taking them to the toilet, having them do that, or grab the pitcher, or say potty.
Okay.
And initially you're going to start with about every 10 to 15 minutes taking them to the toilet.
Okay.
And you'll take them to the toilet, have them go through the whole toileting routine, pulling down their pants, sitting down, or standing up, whatever you prefer at first. And then you are going to have them sit or stand there for about 5 minutes.
Okay. Really important to have a timer.
Yes, timing.
I could not have done this without a timer.
No.
Because if it had been up to me, I would have gotten fuzzy with it. And you don't want fuzzy at all with this. You want to be really, timer.
A timer is very important. Set it for every 15 minutes. And then 5 minutes of having them on the toilet in the bathroom. Pushing liquids is very important as well. You want them to be drinking way more than they normally would. So have juice boxes, more exciting drinks than just water. Anything that will allow them to drink more, and then of course urinate more often.
And even to the point of having them eat something salty so that they will be more likely to want to drink more stuff. Okay.
Exactly.
So our list of things to go shopping for is growing. Salty snacks, juice boxes, bottled water kind of thing, but some kind of, snappy-do liquids that's going to elevate it a little bit more. But I'm wondering, Angela, like some of this you could kind of do beforehand too. Like couldn't you be working on the potty thing before your 3-day?
Exactly.
And or pointing to the picture, or making the bathroom so that it's a really cool place. That could even happen beforehand.
Exactly. And if you have a child who has difficulty maybe undressing or dressing, that can be worked on ahead of time as well. Pulling down the pants, pulling up the pants, buttoning, fastening, anything like that can be worked on ahead of time. Of course, hand washing. These are all more complex behaviors. We call them behavior chains because they involve a bunch of small behaviors chained together to form the whole routine. So washing hands isn't just one small behavior. You have to turn on the water and get the soap and rub your hands together, etc. So they're all behavior chains, and you can work on those individually beforehand, so that the child is proficient in some of the other component behaviors before you do the actual pottying.
Okay. Let's imagine for a moment, though, that you don't have those things on board, but you're ready to take the 3 days. You got 3 days that are convenient. You're really excited about doing the potty. You could work on the potting and just motor them through the washing hands and do that later on, right?
Exactly. Exactly. It's whatever is whatever works best for you. If you have only this 3-day weekend that you can focus on this, and for the next 6 months you're not going to have any time, then yes, focus on pottying, and then prompt the child through the rest of the actions for it.
And we should note too that in the beginning, are we just mainly focusing on the urination in the toilet? Are we doing both? Or are we I guess if we are focusing on the urination, the poop could just happen.
Yes, most of the cases I've worked I've worked with, we focus on urination first.
Okay.
Because
it does seem like the easier one.
And it happens a little more frequently.
Yes.
And for a lot of the children I've worked with, they'll have specific times, you know, where they'll have a bowel movement, and that is a little more predictable.
Yeah.
And so if they are familiar with the toileting routine already, and they know that they're getting reinforced for that because this is what we're doing in the procedure, the bowel movements come a little easier.
Okay. If you've done the urination first.
That's what I've experienced.
Okay,
of course,
that's good to know.
I mean, every child's.
I always thought that we did the pooping in the toilet. I'm just going to say that. I was trying to think of the PC term. Pooping in the toilet. I always thought we did it later because it was the harder of the two, but maybe I love the idea that it's easier to do it after you've already gotten the urination. It's just that much easier. Fabulous.
And I've had children that will be completely toilet trained to urinate in the toilet, but they still request diapers from their parents to have a bowel movement, which of course, removing the diapers and then providing a really, really effective reinforcer works every time.
Okay, we're going to talk more about that. Let's take a break, though, and we're going to come back, and we've kind of set the scene now and started to talk about the timer. So we're going to talk more about that and how you target this behavior to make it consistent and then reinforce the dickens out of it. More with Angela Persicki when we come back. Stick with us.
I am grateful for Autism Speaks because they allow families like me to have hope. They're working towards having these children live better lives.
There's a space for you. Yeah, there's a world for you, and there's a community that is behind you.
And one that has really been able to be the singular voice for people who are involved with and who care about autism.
I do have autism, but I don't let that become a disability for me. Autism Speaks is going to continue to help those who need it, and just look at all the stuff they've done so far and you will be impressed.
3, 2, 1.
And you need to support the walks. We have to raise awareness, but we also have to raise funds to do the work.
I'm grateful for Autism Speaks for one main reason, is they are allowing me to focus on the research.
The work that Autism Speaks has been doing is critical for keeping autism research on the radar screen.
We proclaimed 2 April as the World Autism Awareness Day. I'm very proud of the UN and thankful Autism Speaks.
Getting the health mandate bill passed in New Jersey particularly, we needed to be able to make an argument, not just do this because it's the right thing to do, but do it because it's cost effective.
When everyone else told me nothing was wrong with my son, I got information from a website that told me something wasn't right.
I am so proud of Autism Speaks for creating these beautiful ad campaigns, which have reached people who are not affected by autism and have also created a greater climate of compassion and understanding.
It's been really great for Bachman to have gotten involved with Autism Speaks early on. I think everybody here feels like they really make a difference.
To make sure that we generate as much money as we can for Autism Speaks so we can all solve this puzzle together.
There's no way we could have come this far without our families, without our supporters to date, but there's so much farther we have to go. And everybody's invited to join this cause. We need all the help we can get to make the difference we know we can make.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our special guest right now is Angela Persicki, and she is the Assistant Director of the Autism Research Group. It was a long night last night tonight. My lips still aren't working yet. But in any case, we're talking with her about toileting, how we can target this behavior and get consistency. And I really think, as we were talking during the break, it seems like that is the watchword, consistency. And I was mentioning before that when we did this with my son, we had one of those old-fashioned kitchen timers that had a big old bell on the back of it. And I honestly think that my son did this like a champ, and he did it very quickly, and the therapists that help us were absolutely wonderful because what they saw that they needed to do was put me and my husband on a timer. And the payoff for it was too that the timer, we would set the timer for, I think in the beginning it was 10 or 12 minutes, and the bell would go off and everybody in the house would react. Wherever they were, the bell's gone off, it was potty time, and we would conga to the bathroom line, and the bell would go with us. He would get on the toilet and he would watch us do it. We would set it to 5 minutes. And it would be, good, positive time. The bell would go off, whether he did it or not, he would get off the toilet. But I'll tell you what, I remember there was at least one day when therapists weren't there, and I thought, oh, I don't need the timer. I can do this without the timer. I can gauge, because it's so difficult to go like this, right? And it's so time-consuming and costs money to go like this to the timer that we already have. It's silly, really. And that was not a successful day. And then I was reminded, really, this takes 5, milliseconds. I can do that, and it keeps me functioning.
Exactly. The timer is really for the parent or whoever is implementing this, because that's all about consistency. And especially if you're having your child drink a lot of beverages throughout the day and you miss that 10-minute.
And it happens. You're on the phone and you get distracted or something else. You're having a wonderful interactive moment with your child and you're not hearing a bell go off, and all of a sudden you've set yourself up to not have success is what you've done.
Yes, and also accidents would probably occur as well because we get distracted. We need our own prompts. We need prompts to continue doing what we need to do as well. So absolutely, we've used buzzers as well because they're more discreet. So sometimes the children become really reactive to the bell. And of course you don't want your child only knowing that the bell means potty.
Yes, absolutely. So, well, I think now we would do it on our phones.
Yes, exactly.
That's how we time is reading and stuff for homework and writing and stuff, so we would use the phone.
Yeah, and leave it on vibrate, and so it's more discreet.
Right.
But we talked a little bit about starting off with 10-minute intervals. And so oftentimes we will take data ahead of time, but we're so used to taking data.
Yes,
it comes
you guys like to take data.
Exactly.
But it's useful in all of the circumstances, and it's easily demonstrable how useful it is in this circumstance.
So we've sometimes taken data ahead of time to see how frequently the child is actually urinating throughout the day in his or her diaper. And then, if they're going every hour, sometimes we will go down to a half hour to start out with. But the more frequently you start out with just taking them to the toilet every 10 minutes, it will reduce the accidents. So we, anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes, but of course you want more opportunities for success. You want them to achieve that toy or that snack or whatever it is that you chose for the toileting procedure as reinforcement. You want them to have the opportunity to get that as frequently as possible.
And I gotta say, the whole data taking thing beforehand, when you come home from the hospital with the baby, they ask you for the first week and a half, if not longer, your doctor asks you to take data about how often your child eats and how often they go to the bathroom, because they're looking to see the correlation between the two. And so in this instance, you're not having to write down every time your child eats, you're just having to write down every time they go to the bathroom. I think it's hard when a child's in a diaper because you're not always aware, so there's a little bit of a, but you start to get smart and savvy about it. And I'll tell you what else happens when you start to note that is that you're watching your kid to see some of the behavior that they engage in right before they pee, which becomes a clue. And you don't notice it beforehand. I certainly didn't until you start taking the data. And then you go, oh, he goes behind this chair when he wants to poop. How about that? I didn't notice that before.
Exactly.
He's already picked his bathroom.
And then you can also see if the child is even engaging in those behaviors, if they're even aware of the fact that they're, urinating in their diaper, because sometimes with the diapers so great these days, they don't really feel a lot. So it's not something that they think about.
Right.
And you want to get them to the point where they're thinking about it, which taking them out of diapers into big girl, big boy underwear will make them so they realize if they do have an accident, they know, like, oh, this is what happened.
Yeah. Is it helpful before you're taking the diapers away? One of the things we watched this week in the A Word, he hasn't started potty training where we're watching in the episodes yet, but he at one point is taking a poop, and so the therapist says, oh, are you pooping? And he asks for a minute because he's pooping, and then they go to see Daddy afterwards, and the therapist says, oh, he was pooping. It's still in the diaper, but just calling attention to the fact that he was pooping. There's nothing bad about it. And the dad says, oh, good job, you're pooping. So languaging what's happening, is that a helpful thing?
Exactly. And I saw that episode too.
Isn't it great?
It was really great. And yes, making it so they are aware and reinforcing them when they can tell you or sign in some way that they're using the bathroom in their diaper is that's a great start to any toileting program, because then you can see, okay, the child is more aware of it, so maybe this is a good time to start.
And especially to making it like it's a good event. You're doing that. That's great because it's inevitable.
Exactly.
Our children are going to poop, and why not make it something that they feel happy and prideful and joyful about instead of ashamed and like it's something bad and well, let's help them out here.
And even once you're fully into this procedure and you have the child in their underwear, and if they do have an accident, you don't want to punish that.
Right.
Do not punish that. Just don't give them the reinforcer, of course, and then a lot of times you'll take them right to the toilet, the bathroom, and have them change their clothes and everything like that, and kind of prompt them through that if they don't know how. But that is, it's effortful to have to change their clothes and everything. So, and then have them sit on the toilet again.
Right. But it should be a non-event, is what you're saying. Yeah,
exactly.
So we're not in the bathroom and going, now if you just remembered to pee or tell mommy or do this or whatever, or you see how nasty and icky and whatever, it's just a non-event. You're taking the clothes off, putting the clothes on, not paying a whole lot of attention to it, not a whole lot of discussion, a non-event. Let them be feeling whatever, but we're not adding on to it. We're not shaming them for having done that. It's a non-event.
Yeah,
I love the idea, I think it's Evelyn Gould that says, look, when they do something good, we want it to be like we switched on the lights and a party happens. And when they don't do the thing we want them to do, it's like nothing happens. You're just sitting in the room and nothing's happening, but when good things happen, you switched on lights, the party happens. Okay, so let's go back to this idea of you set the timer for 10 minutes or whatever, because you've done a little bit of research about how often after drinking your child has to go to the bathroom. It's kind of fascinating. I had never thought about this before, and then you kind of notice it for yourself. Okay, so I drank this big thing. How long before I have to go to the bathroom? Notice it. It's an interesting thing.
And for children, it's a lot lot more frequently than, than adults. So
I think so. I was kind of amazed. For adults, it's not that huge of a period of time too. If you seriously sit down and drink a bunch of liquid, you're going to have to go to the bathroom much sooner than I was aware of.
Within about 30 minutes.
Yes, it's kind of amazing how that works. And that shocked me. Just as a person walking the face of this earth, and I was like, didn't know that. In any case, I just never took the time to think about that before. So we set it for, let's say, 10, 12 minutes, whatever, and our timer, not their timer, our timer goes off, and we take them to the bathroom. We make that a happy, joyous event.
And we remember, you want to say it's time to go potty, and have them say go potty, or use their card, or make the potty sign. Anything.
So that's an important part of it.
Very important.
You gotta, in whatever way, functional communication, time for potty. Okay.
Exactly.
So we go off to the bathroom, we put them on the toilet, and we reset the timer.
5 minutes, yeah.
5 minutes. And we have all that reinforcing stuff that's in there. We have the videos so that they're not getting bored or antsy or anxious while they're there. Let's imagine that within that 5 minutes, the child urinates in the toilet. What happens then?
You have their highly, highly preferred reinforcer.
Okay.
So this is when that is used. So if it's a toy they've wanted for a long time, or a special movie, a snack, that's when that reinforcer is given.
The first time, have we already identified what that reinforcer is, or do we just give it to them when that happens? Have we talked about it beforehand and said, if you pee, you get the movie, or we just give it to them?
Yes, I've done both. It
depends on the kid?
Yeah, it depends on the child. How much language they have. But a lot of times we'll say it anyways. So go potty and you get M&Ms or something like that. Go potty and you get the robot. And if they don't in that time period, it stays there, and then you go back and...
but let's still go back to the reinforcement though for a second. So you've put them on the toilet for the 5 minutes and they did do it. You haul out the big guns reinforcing. But, and this is going to sound like a ridiculous question, but I'm like, we got to get it right. So do we immediately put the M&Ms in their mouth, or do we finish the whole toileting routine? Are they still on the toilet when they get it, or does it depend on the reinforcer and depend on the kid?
It always depends.
And that's important for us to know. Because we're all the time saying this is not a cookie cutter, right? Our kids are individual, and so for a kid who really needs immediate reinforcement, maybe you're putting the M&Ms in their mouth while they're still in the toilet and then finishing up.
Exactly. For other kids, we always say throw a potty party.
Yeah.
So everyone jumps up and down and is clapping.
Praise.
Yay, you did it! High fives, and then they can pull their pants, and then, or you can help them pull their pants and then give them their toy.
So at the very least, immediately praising.
Yes.
But depending on the reinforcer, if it's ice cream and you don't want to deal with ice cream on the toilet, the praise and then the thing comes. But it's got to come. That's not when you go shopping for the toy.
No.
That you did beforehand. You give the toy as quickly as possible.
It's not okay. You did it, so we're going to get you a toy tomorrow. No. No. It's you have it right there immediately in your pocket on a shelf, and you give it to them.
So so in that instance, they've peed on the toilet within the 5 minutes, and you praise. You have the potty, and you go back out and set the timer for 10 minutes again.
Exactly.
And when the timer goes off, you go back in 5 minutes on. And you keep doing that. You don't stop after once. You just keep on doing that.
And this is what you're going to see most of the time. The very first time you take your child, sit them on the toilet for 5 minutes, nothing's going to happen.
Right.
So you go back 10 minutes, 5 minutes again. This is where it's really important to write down what is happening. So this is the time I took him to the restroom. This is what happened. Did he go? Did he not? Plus or minus, whatever you can do, and just keep track. And you'll be seeing by the end of the day that the frequency of actually going in the toilet has increased.
Okay, so but back to the routine, because we don't stop doing it after 2 times.
No.
Like your child's having success, that's not the time to stop the routine. We're going to keep on doing the routine. But again, going back to the scenario, so you went the 10 minutes, you go in, you set the timer for 5 minutes, and as you said, most of the time in the beginning, unless you're incredibly lucky, it's not going to happen that first time. So we don't praise because nothing good happened. We don't denigrate or nag or go over the rules or non-event. We, help them to still wash their hands, finish out the routine, pulling up the pants, whatever. Leave the bathroom, go out and set it for how long? Do we set it for 10 minutes? Do we set it for 8 minutes? Or it kind of depends on the child?
if you chose about 10 minutes, I think you could set it for 10 minutes.
Okay.
You want to stay, again, pretty consistent with that.
Okay. But if you see that consistently as you're charting this, that you've set it for 10 minutes and the child urinated at 8, then you can adjust it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Okay. So 5 minutes sitting on the toilet, you're done, you go out, you go back, you set it for 10 minutes, and the child has an accident in 8 minutes.
Right.
Then the next time you set it for 5.
Right.
And
right.
go back.
Setting it for success. But you keep on doing it and keep on trying to get to the reinforcement.
Exactly.
That's really, I think what's key is always trying to get to the reinforcement, because that's when they're going to want it. They have a vested interest in complying with whatever the lesson is. So.
And of course, if the child has an accident, that you reset the timer.
Yes.
Because they went, of course.
And let's talk about that. Okay, so we said before, you go in the bathroom or whatever acceptable place that you have, and you make them a part of, or have them change themselves if they're old enough to do that, or at least make them a part of it so that they're aware of what's happening. And do we put them back on the potty in that moment before we reset, or we just reset? Depend on the child?
I've had both situations.
Okay.
I think you would be good with just resetting.
Okay. Okay, but for some kids, it's important for them to be reminded, put on the child. Okay. And it's so important, and I so appreciate that you're here and helping us to talk about this and to realize that it's not this cookie cutter, right? There are some things that it's important consequences, but there are variables in different kids, and there is a part of it where you're going to be able to use your instinct and apply these tools in a creative way to fit your child, your home, your rules, your child's physiological schedule and how they learn. So there is no hard and fast boom, 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 except for setting yourself up for success and following the consequences.
And timing it.
Timing it, yeah. We gotta get a little lucky there.
And this is why a lot of times we will track when the child is going just in their diaper beforehand, and maybe a day or two before, if you push fluids and have them drinking a lot, are they going every 15 minutes? Then you want to go more frequently than that. So we usually say if they're going every 15 minutes, take them half the time.
Half.
So,
okay, because you want to have success.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, we're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the poop in the toilet, and then we're going to talk about nighttime, because nighttime's a whole other Megillah, right? So stick with us, more with Angela Persicki when we come back.
Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, and this is my son, Jem. We're here today at the Home Depot. You might know that Home Depot is famous for giving free classes to adults on lots of things like tiling and other home crafts. Well, they also have free classes for kids as well. It's called the Kids Workshop. We love doing that, don't we, Jem?
Yeah.
It's cool. So come on inside with us and let's do a craft.
Yay.
The Kids Workshop is a program that's been around with Home Depot almost since we've been a company, and it's been developed to allow kids in the community to come in and give them an opportunity to build something, to be able to create something and be able to take just simple wood pieces and put them together with nails and hammers and screwdrivers and then paint them.
So you do this every first Saturday of the month.
Any Home Depot that you go to on the first Saturday of every month between 9 and 12, you can join different associates throughout different stores and build these projects with these kids.
And do they have to do anything beforehand, or can they just show up on that Saturday?
All they need to do is show up. We have all the tools, all the materials that the kids will need. We have aprons that we give to the kids that they can take home and maintain their pins. They get pins on a regular basis for completing projects. With that, they can keep track of how many projects they've done. And
it's all free.
It's all absolutely free, all provided.
Which is wonderful. And Wilson, I have to say, you guys devised this for all kids to be able to do this.
Correct.
What I particularly love about it as an autism mom, it gives my child a place to come and learn a new skill, to socialize with kids of all kinds.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here for. Home Depot is definitely loves to be involved with the community and bring the community in to work with us. That's what we love to do.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. We're talking about toilet training with Angela Persicki. She is a BCBA. She is the Assistant Director of the Autism Research Group. Thank you so much for being here with us talking about this. We've talked about how to get ourselves set up for potty boot camp, how to tackle the urination in the toilet. So now it's time to move on to the poop. It's a little different, but you were saying that sometimes when you get the urination under control, that the poop isn't as difficult. But there are some considerations. I know some kids are aversive to the hole. They just don't want to let the poop go. And there's lots of different reasons why, right?
Yes, yes.
Does it matter why? Do we need to try to get into their heads to determine what it is, whether it's the splashing or the open hole or letting go of something that feels like a piece of them? Does it really matter at the end of the day?
You know, not really. Not really. No matter what it is, if they do, if the child is really anxious about doing this in the toilet, of course, we're going to do the same things, make it the most fun experience they've had, and put their most reinforcing items in there with them. Movies are always great. And, when it comes down to it, the reason they're not doing it, unless it's of course a medical reason, which you want to go to a pediatrician, your pediatrician about. But for the most part, we use the same principles.
We just pair it with something so reinforcing that it makes it worthwhile. And I got to tell you, that's what worked with my child. We took him to the store. He picked out the toy that he wanted. It went up on the towel bar. He went to reach for it, and we said, you can have that right after you go poop in the potty. And he, he got that determined look on his face and got up on that potty and, as a friend of mine says, made a dolphin. It's a terrible euphemism for pooping in the potty. But, and then every day he would go to bed at night, and the rule was that as soon as he pooped in the toilet once, he could play with that toy the rest of the day. He would go to sleep at night. We would collect all the pieces, put it in its canister, put it back up on the towel bar, and he had to poop every day in order to have access to that toy. And that's the only time he could have it.
And that sounds absolutely perfect for what you'd want to do.
Well, we didn't invent it. We were told that by the people who study autism and related disorders. It was not me who came up with that idea.
But that is the way to do it. And of course, having a bowel movement is less frequent. And once a day sounds pretty good. And so you won't use the exact same method where I'm only giving the toy right after for a certain amount of time and then putting it back, or giving whatever their reinforcer is. The way you did it, where if they get that for the rest of the day. That's great, but you have to remember to put it back.
Yes, you do have to remember to put it. And actually, what's interesting to me is that we did have a period of time where we had to change it a little bit because before that, he'd only been going once a day, but we got into this little bit of a mode where he would go in and poop in the morning, and he would get the toy, and then he would go back and poop his pants later on in the day.
Oh, okay.
Right? And then we had to change things up a little bit because what he was realizing was it's just the first time of the day, so we did have to change things up. Just when you think you've outsmarted them, they outsmart you.
Exactly.
And then you have to change the rules.
Yes, and in all situations like that, you'll have to modify it based on your child and what your child needs. And if your child is going more than once a day or twice a day, you have to only give them the toy for a certain amount of time, or when we could start fading it out like you would do. I don't know if we necessarily talked about this.
We didn't talk about fading out.
Because you need to fade the procedure to longer periods of time once they're consistently going. And it would be the same for this situation too. You need to fade out how often they're getting the reinforcer. Now it's maybe every other time they get the reinforcer. If they don't have an accident all day long, then they get the reinforcer.
And that is in fact what we changed it to.
Yes, and systematically fading it, so don't just remove the reinforcer immediately. You may have to give the reinforcer incrementally throughout.
And the same thing with a timer.
That, you know, if you've been at 10 minutes and the child is getting great success, now you go to like 10 and a half minutes or to 11 minutes. You don't immediately jump to 15 or 20, you know, that you go in small increments. Where you going? You got no place important you got to be, just change it a little bit at a time. And by the way, once your 3 days is over, you can still be setting the timer because when you go to run errands, the expectation that your child is going to be able to, before you've been on a timer where they got to go every 10 minutes, and now you're out and gone to the grocery store and you're gone for 30 minutes, the expectation should not be there that they're going to be able to make that leap. So the timer still goes with you.
And make sure you go to a place that has a restroom.
Absolutely.
Or a one nearby at least. You have to plan for that when you do start going out again and you're not just in the boot camp mode, you're actually going back into the normal activities of every single day.
But even while we're talking about that, because one of the things we talked about today was generalization, that we have to plan for generalization, which means that you don't want your child to just be going to the bathroom in your toilet or in the one downstairs toilet. You want to start to practice in other toilets, like your friend's house, your grandmother's house, and the grocery store, because that is the reality.
Public restrooms are a big challenge for even a typical child that's potty trained for years. So I know that they make these nice little foldable toilet seat covers that you can take with you, and those are really great for kids. And you get ones with pink princesses on them for girls, or cars for boys.
Absolutely.
And again, it's about making that environment reinforcing as well.
And what about having the reinforcer with you when you go to the public restroom? So whatever it is, if it's the bag of M&Ms, you got to have it with you so that they go to the bathroom in the Target store, that they get the M&Ms.
And if you've already faded the procedure so the child isn't getting the reinforcer until they've gone 4 times, you know, in the toilet, and no accidents or whatever you have planned for that. But this is the first time going to a new store and they'll be out in a public restroom. It doesn't matter if they just got the reinforcer at home. You bring that reinforcer and give it to them in that environment.
Right, because you're up in the stakes there. Okay, because we're running out of time here, let's talk about the nighttime. And it's a whole other ball of wax.
It is.
Do we try to take it all at the same time, or do we really want to get the other stuff on board first and later on take the nighttime?
The other stuff on board first, and then take on the nighttime. And again, you need to pay attention to when the child is going at night. And there's a lot of bed paddings out there and everything like that. And the natural consequence, of course, of wetting the bed. But you probably don't even want to attempt that until the child is proficiently potty trained during the day. And typical children wear diapers at night for
a long
months,
time.
You know,
and pull-ups, you know, a nice in-between stage, so it's seeming more like underwear, but keeps them protected and lets you be able to sleep longer. But at some point, you want to take on the nighttime toileting. It may be even 2 years down the road after your child has been potty trained. And what are some things that we can do to set ourselves up for success for nighttime toileting?
Giving rules. Is always great if the child is able to understand rules. So, you know, no wetting the bed, and then we get this. And you may want to even start by, if the child is wetting the bed right in the middle of the night, waking them up right before that.
Which means another timer for us.
Exactly.
It means your timer's going off at 2:25 and you're getting up and walking your child to the bathroom. But I got to tell you, as horrible as that feels, that's a lot better than getting up at 2:45, changing a bed, and starting laundry.
And they have great bedding pads these days for this. And I believe there are even some that have an alarm.
Oh, alarm.
I'm not positive on that. I've heard something about them.
We'll look into
but maybe look into that. And but it's the same basic concepts: reinforcement, big reinforcers for not wetting the bed, and but for some children, you know, at night it's just if they're used to doing that and
sometimes they're
not aware.
Deep. Yeah.
If they're not aware of it, then it's going to be a problem. But you definitely want to get a hold of the daytime
first. But going back to the nighttime thing, again, if there is an accident, we're not berating, not humiliating, not nagging. We just, you know, they got to stand up. If you got to change something, you got to change them, wash them up, whatever, that they're aware of it. It's uncomfortable for them too, but you're not pointing that out to them and getting them back in bed as quickly as possible so we can all get back to what's at hand. There's a story, though, that I heard on my local support group that I always think of now with nighttime toileting, because you said one of the best things is, you know, talking about different rules. And then a lot of times we're working on more than one thing at a time and getting the child to go to bed and stay to bed. And this one story that this mom told that changed my way of looking things, that they had said to him, now, when you go to bed, you have to stay in bed. And if you stay in bed, you get this reinforcer, right? And he kept wetting the bed, wetting the bed, and wetting the bed. And finally, in a moment of just exhaustion, she said, you know, I just don't understand why you don't get up at night when you feel this. And he looked at her and said, you mean I'm allowed to get up out of bed? And she said, oh, of course you're allowed to get up out of bed to go to the bathroom. He said, okay, I didn't know that. And that was the end of it. We got to be really careful what we say, and when we give the rules, that we're thinking, because our kids, even though they may not have the language to tell you, they see things a lot of times from this 360 perspective that we are not. So, and she, you know, she said, I just wanted to go beat my head against a wall. How silly of me that we went through however much time of this, because I didn't think of it that way, but he did. So be clear with your rules. Clear with your rules and clear with your reinforcers.
And in that case, too, using a bedtime pass. So they get one bedtime pass and they can use it for one thing, and then they can't get out of bed after that. That often works too. And a lot of times they won't even use the pass because they're saving it. So, but that's another thing that you can do for children who are constantly getting out of bed.
Okay. Now, for people who have questions, of course, we talked about Azrin and Fox, the book. What's the title of the book?
Toilet Training in Less Than a Day.
Okay. And if you want to know about studies, you can write to us and we will hook you up with where you can go to get the studies. And if you have questions, you can continue to write into us. Angela's going to be coming back on a weekly basis on Thursdays, I believe that's what we're going to be doing. And so you can, you know, ask a question and know that she'll answer it the next Thursday. So that's a great thing to do. We've gone so over that I got to keep you here as we close the show, but it is time to close the show. But I want to thank you so much for being willing and coming in and talking with us about this, because to know that it's surmountable is a huge, huge gift for us. So thank you so much.
No problem.
I want to remind all of you that this show is going to end, but the conversation continues. There are lots of ways that you can get a hold of us here. You can be emailing us, and Matt's going to go through some of the different ways that you can get a hold of us. And by the way, when you're getting a hold of us, you're getting a hold of everybody, because I know where to find all of our experts, and so I'll forward on the appropriate directions that they go to. Because it's not me answering all these questions. Clearly, I do not know what I'm talking about a lot of the time. So we farm them out to our different experts, and we will get back to you in writing, and we'll cover it on the next available live show. There are other ways to get a hold of us, though, too. You can be phoning into us. Of course, you can always Skype with us during the live show. We are on Facebook. There is the Autism Live Facebook page. Please give us a like while you're there, and you can pose your questions there. That is a more public way of doing it, but you will find that you will also get other parents responding too, which that's not a bad thing at all. You can also talk to us on Twitter. That is a wonderful way to tweet with us. Just thinking about 50 Cent and the Twitter thing, but that's okay. In any case, there are lots of different ways that you can be watching us. You might be watching us right now on autism-live.com, but you can also catch us on blip.tv. You can be watching us on our YouTube channel. You can also watch the A Word on their own YouTube channel. And you can be downloading us for free on iTunes, and you can also find us on Usearch. No, what is that? Ustream, excuse me. I had one of those moments. In any case, all of these different ways that you can watch us, we hope that you will participate in the conversation with us. Tell us what kinds of things you're interested in hearing more about, what's working for you, what isn't. Give us your suggestions, your comments, your questions. We are thrilled to be able to be here and provide this service to you and help you hook up with the information that you need to help your child reach their fullest potential. That's what we're all about. I know that's the business I'm in as a parent. I know that's the business you're in as a parent. So
participate with us. We love your interaction. We're going to be back tomorrow with another live show at 9 a.m. in the morning, and Dr. Jonathan Tarbox is going to be with us during the 11 o'clock hour talking about research, helping our children to be the best that they can possibly be, and what we know helps to make that happen. So you won't want to miss that at 11 o'clock. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.